What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 641 of the Smark Smack Talk podcast, hot tags of the week, where we've got quite a bit to break down here, all over the place, of different things in the rumor mill and gossip and current events and TV recap and so on and so forth. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Robert D. Felice.
Hi.
And of course, we are joined by you listening. Thank you for tuning in. We also want to know what you have to say about these topics, so drop your thoughts in the comments below on YouTube or elsewhere if you are listening outside of the YouTube sphere. But if you are on YouTube, then make sure that you click on all those good little buttons you can see on your screen, like the like button, the share button, the subscribe button. Ring that little notification bell as well, and click that join button to get access to the same stuff as the Patreon, patreon.com/smarkoutmoments, where you'll find the Darkcast tier, the Pick Your Poison tier, and everything else along those lines. Same as the YouTube channel membership. Thanks button is another way for you to help us out on the monetary side of things, as well as Redbubble and TeePublic for the merchandise that are out there for not only the Smart Out Moment, but Fanboys Anonymous and A-Mango tees. Go ahead and check them out. Always appreciative every time I get an email that says like somebody bought a sticker of something or a t-shirt, or every once in a while there's a random thing where it'll be like a duvet cover of something or whatever, and I'll be like, okay, well, I'm not gonna deny that at all, but pretty interesting to see that somebody's gonna be having an A-line dress that says I suffer from wrestling bitch face or something like that. But hey, it's out there for you guys to pick up, so go ahead and do that. It's all greatly appreciated. It all helps us keep the lights on here. And of course, also keep in mind that you can join the Discord server if you want to do more than just leave your comments. If you want to chat it up throughout any time of the day, any kind of discussion that we have on all those different channels that we have out there. I mentioned already the Darkcast tier that's over on the channel membership stuff, but that's going to be coming up soon, probably next week. Probably do an episode of Hall of Lame, so stay tuned for that. Sign up for those in the meantime. And let's get the party started here with the hot tags. So a couple things to go back in time for and all, and I think this is one of those topics that had this happened right prior to the hot tags being recorded, this would have probably been the main hot tag during that week. But we are changing things up for WWE in a way that has never happened before. On SmackDown last week, Logan Paul announced that the Prime Hydration logo is going to be put in the center of the ring for premium live events going forward for an indeterminate amount of time. I don't know how long that deal is supposed to be, but starting at WrestleMania, that is going to be the case, and that sucks. Because not only is that, I don't really, I haven't tried any Prime drink. I can't talk about like the taste of it, but it's not something that I would imagine that I would like. But I don't like the idea of WWE having these sponsored spots in the ring. And I know that that's something that a lot of people would be like, well, it makes sense. Why wouldn't they monetize it and all? But, we've had this discussion before. I'm not in the interest of WWE making money. I'm in the interest of me being a consumer and an entertained fan. And I don't like that going forward, we're going to have things like, hey, if Cody does win the belt at WrestleMania, the footage is always going to be him pinning Roman on top of a Prime Hydration logo. And you know that this is only the start of things too. Once they open the floodgates, it's done. It's never not going to be a thing. They are always going to have somebody willing to spend some amount of money for that. And they're going to expand it. They're going to have, the corners of the rings, the turnbuckles are going to have sponsored things. Pretty soon, we're going to end up reaching a point where the security barricades, the ring apron, and all over the ring, and the turnbuckles, and the turnbuckle posts, when they have those LED screens, are going to be all covered in ads while the commentators say things. And then there's that little bug on the screen that pops up and says something else. And it's going to be, the KFC sponsors the blah, blah, blah match. And, Snickers presents WrestleMania is going to be like up on the screen the whole time and all. This is going to be so fucking annoying. And I hate it.
I think it's going to sound weird, but I think it's one of those things where if they do more of it, it might look better than just the one giant prime bottle in the ring. Like, there's a way to do this tastefully, and other sports do it. Like the UFC does it. Fucking Lucha does it. My biggest memories of Lucha are all with the Corona beer logo in the middle of the ring, because they've just done that forever. The prime bottle looks stupid. That's probably my biggest issue with it, is not the nicest logo for the center of the ring. But I kind of got over this last year when the Mike's Hard Lemonade Intercontinental Championship match was all over the place. And I was like, okay, we know where they're going. Nothing you can do.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be just a matter of time after the TKO merger that all of this stuff was going to flood in. We know how UFC scatters sponsorships across all of their stuff, and as I say, they're not alone in doing that. You see it around the stadiums in any sports arena during any events. Got like Formula One, they have tons and tons of sponsors logos across the cars in different places. It's just all taking up like real estate, and it's just trying to get a huge as big a amount of money as possible off the back of it. And I think they said that this was like one of the biggest sponsorship deals that WWE's ever agreed to with Prime. So yeah, we know that the synergy they have with Logan Paul. He's a champion in the company, for Christ's sake. So it isn't a surprising move, but like Tony, it's one that looks disappointing. As Gunther would say, the ring is sacred, and you should not spoil it with a candy flavored hydration drink.
Have you ever had Prime, Callum?
Yes, I have.
What do you think of it?
It's okay.
Yeah, I actually, to be honest, I don't think it's that bad given the alternatives out there.
I tried a few of them, like different flavors. Like I think the lemon and lime ones are pretty alright. I mean, to be fair, I'm like, because like part of me is like 5 years old, I'm a big fan of the blue raspberry one.
I mean, it doesn't matter what your age. I was looking at my fucking soap earlier, thinking, if that was a drink, I would drink it. but yeah, I mean, I say it doesn't really matter here or there whether Prime is good or not. The fact is, it's super popular, and they can pay enough money to get their big logo in the middle of a WWE ring for every single PLE moving forward. So this is WrestleMania with people slamming yourself onto Prime bottles instead. To be fair, we had a giant Prime bottle at last year's WrestleMania as well. So yeah, but it's different in the sense of like, if you have, we've seen all sorts of different product placement in WWE. Like, there's not only the commercials that we get, and then there's the commercials that we get that aren't commercials technically, but they are commercials because they're getting paid to do something during the show, which is like, that is so annoying. We've had the discussion a million times, so I'm not gonna belabor the point too much, but like, the whole idea of like, well, you're paying for cable, it used to not have commercials, then you have commercials, then they run commercials during the show, and then they put it on the bottom of the screen, and then they say it's sponsored by so-and-so, and then they start plugging stuff where it's like the KFC buckets are like on the commentary table, and it's just at a point where it's just like, as an advertiser, I would assume too much noise is not worth it anymore. And kind of like when you click on a website, if you see on Smark Moment, there's not a million different advertisements that pop up, and partially that's because I don't want everybody to just be like, well, it's only ads on this site, and partially because if anybody's going to want to click on any of that, I want to make sure that they get the best rate possible and stuff. So I don't want to see Randy Orton come out with trunks that say Arby's on it or something, like, like, it's just, I don't know why it would be Arby's, but it's the first thing I thought of. Like, we're going to get to that point too, because it's just going to be everything. Every square inch of everything is going to be that. To the, there'll be 3 hours worth of ads for every Monday Night Raw, and then you won't bother to watch it anymore. And then everything will collapse. I hate it. I am going to hate how much worse it gets in the future. And for anybody that's going to be like, oh, everybody does this and they just deal with it or whatever, doesn't mean I have to like it just because everybody else has it. There's insane amount of ads on, like, you just look around a baseball stadium and you just see, like, everything is just, here's an ad for TurboTax, and here's an ad for this, and here's an ad for that. And I don't want the ring to have that. It's bad enough already with as much of that as they is. So it's only going to get worse, and you're going to keep hearing me complain about it. So sorry in the future, everybody. It's just going to be more of an annoyance. Logan Paul also announced another thing, though, this week, which is that SummerSlam is coming to Cleveland. Took a while for us to get the information about where SummerSlam was. Like, it's, March 15th.
I feel like I've heard Cleveland for like the last 7 months.
Oh, I mean, confirmation.
This is fine. I don't care about big cities like that unless you tell me you're running the Garden. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Like, I don't personally care that it's in Cleveland. I'm not going to go there. Kalen and they might go, but it's interesting that they had him announce it, and he is from Cleveland. And immediately that ran into some people discussing, like, okay, well, does that mean that Logan Paul is going to challenge for one of the championships there?
Logan Paul versus Cody is the thing I saw.
Logan Paul versus Cody, I would hope, would be one of the options, because that would make a lot of sense. Which then that gets into the discussion of, okay, if that were to happen, that would take Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton off the table from a thing that we've talked about before. Of course, that's if Cody even wins the championship to begin with. So, it could be Cody versus Logan in a non-title match, and Roman is still holding the belt and doing nothing or something. It could be Logan Paul against whoever is holding the World Heavyweight Championship. We could get Logan Paul against CM Punk in a non-title match. Could be a thing. I don't know.
I don't know why that tickles me. Just thinking, CM Punk hasn't worked a match outside of the Rumble, but I hope we get him for that Logan Paul match.
It all depends on how soon he can come back, and what happens with that title at WrestleMania and stuff too. Because for all we know, it could be like by the time SummerSlam comes around, Drew McIntyre's won the belt and lost it to CM Punk. And then we get Punk against Logan Paul or something. I don't know. But it's something to keep an eye on, because if that is within that range of, like, let's try to make that happen, Logan Paul could be a big player for SummerSlam when it comes around. Something to keep in mind.
I think Logan Paul will be a big player regardless.
Most likely. But, there's been big shows that he's missed out on before.
Not too much if you think about the big three that WWE likes to tell everybody that's the only thing that matters. You actually just said something that grinds my gears, but I'll bring it up later when we talk about something that happened on Raw. Again, this is fine. It's going to be in Cleveland Brown Stadium. A lot of people made jokes that it'll be the first time world champions enter the stadium and God knows how long. I don't understand that reference because I don't watch sports. This is fine.
Oh, speaking of a reference to something, when you were talking about Lucha and the Corona thing, have you guys seen that thing that's been going around recently of the Cerveza Cristal?
No, what?
Did you see that, Callum?
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is an offshoot type of discussion, but the Prime drink thing got me thinking of it too. Apparently, when Star Wars has been airing in some country, I don't know if it's in Mexico or not, they ran it commercial free, but the way that they ran it commercial free was they inserted filmed clips that seemed like if Luke's like going to reach for his lightsaber, and then they show like just somebody's hand and he's picking up something called Cerveza Cristal.
That I've seen, yes.
And it's just like it keeps popping up in the different things now as like a meme where people are like, the Prime drink logo being in the ring, and it's like Cerveza Cristal.
It was Chile, and it was 20 years ago, apparently.
And for some reason, it's a thing now, and it's just now I'm thinking WWE is going to have that with their advertisements, and it's like, Logan Paul's Prime hydration drink sponsors SummerSlam in Cleveland, and then in the middle of some other matches, You're gonna just have Cerveza Prime or something like that. Random discussion, not gonna be a big thing. We make a big spot for it on Fanboys or something, so I figured I'd mention it here. Let's see. Let's bounce to another. It's just a quick thing to mention. This isn't even worth really being a hot tag. But if you like commemorative tag team title belts, there's a new one coming out from WWE for the Dudley Boyz. Pick that up and spending an insane amount of money on the championship. But it's pretty cool that they're getting a little bit of a shout out there with their own little custom belt.
I always like the custom championships personally, and I think that the Dudley's getting one is pretty cool.
Yeah, they're one of the most decorated tag teams. Makes sense. Let's talk about Shayna Baszler is going to be on GCW's Bloodsport. Triple H has been way more willing to let people bounce around in other companies and pop up here and there. Does she have any kind of confirmed opponent for that yet?
Nope, but if I had to guess, I'm thinking it's either Marina or maybe they'd get Ronda. I can't imagine GCW runs Ronda versus Shayna, but that'd be pretty fun.
Well, unless it's like their match at SummerSlam, which wasn't very fun.
Well, but Ronda was way more fun in the two matches she did in Ring of Honor and Revolver outside of WWE, so maybe it would be.
Shafir sounds like it would make more sense to me. Like, just, pop up, do that. They're friends. You can build off of the idea of the two of them fighting you off each other as like a featured thing. And then, I don't know how
it's still crazy that a contracted WWE Raw superstar is working a GCW show, regardless of what it is.
I wonder what they're going to get in return.
That is a good question.
Because at some point they're going to call in a favor or something.
Why would they? They're not really cool. It's a I just think that why wouldn't they just say Shayna Baszler just came up and said, I'd really like to do this show, and they just said, okay, cool. Maybe it's.
It could just be as simple as that, and then but in the future they could always use that as like a, hey, remember how we did that? Well, give us a little bit of leniency on this or something. If there's an opportunity to call in a favor at any point, I would assume that they would.
I assume the favor will be that they'll get to talk about WWE and shine a different light on her, because it'll be assuming it's a GCW show. Assume that's happening over WrestleMania weekend, right? Yep. Yeah. So presumably that means she's not going to be on one of the WrestleMania shows, or well maybe because it'll probably be in the week before WrestleMania, won't it? I don't know what day is.
It's Thursday, April 4th.
Yeah, so it'll be in the build up to it. So you get to do a little bit of more local promotion for it among those fans. If they want to do that there gets them a bit of goodwill for being part of the wider weekend. And then of course Shayna will win her match, whatever it is. So that'll be I think that'll be enough of a thing. Because what else could you really get in return? Really, it's not like WWE must be clamoring for a lot of GCW stars. And even so, it's not like just having Shayna appear on the show makes it more likely that they're going to sign with them. I think this week, if any week, has demonstrated that if you want to sign people, pay them money.
Or Mone.
That's another whole how much money are you willing to spend for certain people too when it comes to, I don't know who's on the GCW roster, but
no, the woman that's worked the most of these shows, as I'm looking through it, is Allison Kay, former Sienna. She's never worked WWE, I don't think. But other women that have worked these shows include Marina, Masha Slamovich, Janai Kai, Layla Hirsch. I'd love to see Layla Hirsch, Shayna Baszler. That'd be pretty insane. They've got a few good options. Killer Kelly, we know they worked with TNA women in the past, so that's on the table, I'm sure.
But then those people, you would think that they've been on the radar and they would have used, Killer Kelly was in NXT UK. So if they really were interested in them, they would have kept them, or they would have signed them earlier.
Well, no, I think to Callum's point, it's Shayna could have just said, "Hey, I want to work the show," and they would probably just like, "All right, don't get hurt." You know, like, we're not doing anything with you. We're not going to tell you you can't work a 5-minute, work shoot MMA match.
Yeah, it could just be that. But I would assume that in the future, if they have anything that they would want from them, like if they want somebody to pop up as like a jobber, or if they wanted to like, I don't know, work some kind of a combo house show deal, or I don't know, some kind of thing that they'd be like, hey, remember how we lent you Shayna? Okay, now you kind of owe us. Yeah, it's never lose an opportunity to have a favor done kind of thing. But for anybody that's going to be attending Bloodsport, that's cool. You get to see Shayna in action.
You get to see Shayna real up close too, and Shayna's good. Of all the people that they've dropped the ball on the main roster, she might be at the top of my list. Shayna's too good to be doing what she does on a nightly basis in WWE.
And realistically, even if she isn't on the card for WrestleMania, there's only one spot she would have been on. She'd be tagging with Zoe in a multi-team women's tag match. There's no other role unless they announced some kind of like, the Battle Royal or something, which in that case, she's still not going to win it anyway. So it's not like she's really going to be a featured act. She's not going to suddenly get into the Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch match or anything. Like, it's, send her over there, do that, have some fun. Maybe that'll even boost her morale and keep her around a little longer or something. Or that could be something that's a bad thing for WWE in the long run. Maybe she ends up having so much fun there that she's like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to stick around in WWE. And then they need to make that decision of, do they want to keep her? Do they want to actually push her? Or do they want to just let her go and let her do her own thing? Which would be better for everybody all around anyway. So it's not a bad thing in any fashion. Unless, of course, something happens where she like gets hurt or whatever, which I doubt that's going to be the case. Let's see, what can we switch over to here? Let's talk about these Hall of Fame class members that, we're talking about WrestleMania weekend. 2 more of those names have been announced, and I'm surprised we don't have a third name now, because they've been doing 3 per week, and it's, by the time we record the hot tags, you'd think that would be the case. Maybe they're going to later on today announce somebody, and then we're going to be like, damn, okay. But this week they announced Thunderbolt Patterson and Muhammad Ali. Now, one of those names, very familiar with, everybody knows the name. And the other name is Muhammad Ali. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have the slightest idea who Thunderbolt Patterson is.
It's a name you'll hear a lot if you listen to anybody talking about the territory days. Thunderbolt Patterson is a name that comes up. This is a cool flex by them that he's going to get to be inducted. I don't think everybody needs to be a name that everybody would know, especially if they're going to try to make themselves seem like an actual Hall of Fame. So I think it's cool that he's getting inducted. I don't know who the hell Muhammad Ali is.
Never heard of that name before, right? You're more of a Cassius Clay fan? Such a stupid joke. Muhammad Ali's, it's an easy one we'll talk about him in a minute. But Callum, as far as Thunderbolt Patterson is concerned, do you have any awareness of him? Any kind of thoughts on him?
No, I can only just recount what's been written about him in the past, about being a kind of one of the pioneering or heavily promoted names for African American wrestlers at the time. Apparently he's seen as some sort of inspirational figure for Dusty Rhodes' character, as well as being a contemporary of his. Maybe that's also part of it with the Cody story. Maybe the fact that this guy was someone who can tell some good stories about Dusty Rhodes when he's been inducted as well. So yeah, I can't really say anything. I can't attest to seeing any of his matches or see any of his promos or anything like that. But just based on the fact that he seems to be kind of a pioneer and name for African Americans in wrestling, I think that's probably reason enough to be put into a Hall of Fame.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, just because I don't know him doesn't mean that he hasn't done anything. That would, take out tons of people that could be in that legacy award type of category, or just, older than 80s from my perspective. Because, you ask people that are of an older generation and you say, like, what's your 5 favorite superstars of all time? You're going to ask somebody like a Jim Ross and he's going to talk about like Hackenschmidt and stuff. And then you ask me and I'm going to talk about Shawn Michaels and Undertaker and all. So there's people out there that are very happy about Thunderbolt Patterson being inducted. And I just don't know anything about him. Muhammad Ali, of course, everybody knows the name. Arguably the most famous boxer in the history of the sport. Of course, WrestleMania 1, he's got his ties there. That's the main reason that you can tie him into WWE in that fashion. But for a long time, Muhammad Ali and Cyndi Lauper were the two names that it was like, how have they not been inducted yet? And at least now we're getting one of them. Cyndi Lauper still kind of waiting around for that one, but Ali is a name that just makes perfect sense to go into the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Seriously, why isn't Cyndi Lauper in the Hall of Fame? That's the only one I will complain about, because it's like she did so much for your company.
I feel like they should have just put her in here this year too. Muhammad Ali passed away however many years ago, so he can't be there to induct himself or anything. And you can do more than one person from WrestleMania 1 on the show. It's WrestleMania 40. Do it. For all we know, maybe that is the case. I don't think so. The reports and rumors and stuff that are out there seem to indicate that the only person that's left would be Leah Maivia. Although that's also weird that Bray Wyatt wouldn't necessarily be inducted. So maybe that's not necessarily true. I don't know. We're going to have to find that out. But as far as like who can induct Patterson and Ali, I don't have any idea who could do them.
Ali will probably beat Cody. And it'll probably be like, talk about how Dusty was such a big fan. And because there's nobody really outside of Hogan was around to talk about Ali, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they would necessarily have Hogan do that, but they've had Hogan pop up on a few things here and there, so maybe.
Yeah, I would not want them to have Hogan.
Yeah, I can't really say who would necessarily induct him. Maybe his daughter gives usually talks about him quite a bit, doesn't
I
she?
just assumed she would be accepting on his behalf.
Oh yeah, probably. So yeah, she probably can't induct him as well as be accepting it at the same time as well. So.
Well, they could kind of get around that a little bit. In the past, they've done some things where instead of having somebody actually do a speech, they've just ran a video package. So it could be like, here's a video package about Muhammad Ali, and then they just introduce, accepting the award on his behalf is Layla Ali, right? Is her name, I think?
It is Layla,
yeah.
Yes.
So they don't necessarily have to have somebody do like the whole preamble of introducing the person who's going to introduce that person. It can work that way. But we'll talk more in detail about them with the Wrestling with the Past episode in whatever fashion we can. When it comes to Thunderbolt Patterson, I don't know if I'll end up doing any research before that, but we'll get into some like, hey, theoretically, if Muhammad Ali could have one more match, what would you want to see him have and all? Let's talk about. Now let's get into this one. Sometimes the more personal things that are out there in pro wrestling are, it's a topic to talk about, even though it's more of just, behind the scenes. And yeah, we always like to put something out there when it's like, so-and-so got married, congratulations, or they had a kid or whatever like that. Well, this is the opposite of it. Miro, aka Rusev, and CJ Perry, aka Lana, have apparently split. And of course, we have no idea what goes on behind the scenes. It's not our business. That's not something that we need to get into as far as, trying to get too deep into that. But it's an interesting thing to talk about as far as their futures in pro wrestling, because supposedly Miro went back to Bulgaria. And then what do you do when they're both on the AEW roster? And is that maybe a reason why we've seen so much flippant use of them over the past year or so? Has it been like a long time coming type of a thing? Is this kind of the reason why they've had their spats on TV? Is because that's sort of like, I don't know, little
art imitating life kind of thing?
Yeah, it's proof in the pudding kind of a thing. Or is this something that has had no bearing whatsoever? Of course, we're not going to know, but it's worth kind of dissecting a little bit. Do you guys think that they're going to stick around in AEW together? Do you think one of them's going to leave? Both leave? How would you?
I mean, are you saying what I think or what I hope?
Both.
Okay, I hope they both go, and I would like both of them to go. So it would be a case of I think they both will go as well. So I think that they'll. I think the CJ won't be in wrestling too much longer, and I think that Miro should and probably will end up going back to WWE. I say I don't want to speculate too much about like their what's the stuff that we've seen on the screen, like a sign or a signal of their, because based on what CJ put out there to kind of let people know that they were separating and going to divorce, was the fact that apparently it's been fairly amicable, that they're still friends, that they still plan on doing stuff together in wrestling.
Yeah, like they still plan on being characters on screen together at some point.
It may just be one of those situations where it's like you fall out of like love with someone, but you still love them as a friend or love them as a person. So those things can happen. So you can still be like somewhat amicable, and they can still have a working relationship with each other. I mean, I'm totally fine if they want to have a working relationship with each other. I just don't have it on AEW.
So that explains why he wasn't in Meat Madness, I guess. Right? Like he's
to not
injured
be in the country and to be injured.
He's injured and maybe not even in the country.
All I want to know is where's Bobby Lashley been in all of this situation?
Or where's Liv Morgan been?
Where's Liv Morgan?
Where's Liv Morgan been?
Where's Dolph Ziggler? Summer Rae.
That's right. Like there's all these people.
Andrade, which brings in Charlotte.
Was there a tank? Was there not a tank?
Which then, if you got Andrade in there, then that brings in, like, what did anything ever happen with Selena? Then that brings in Malachi, and then maybe we come back around to it's Miro versus Malachi. There you go.
And yet somehow these are all the people that supposedly wanted to leave AEW and go back to WWE.
See, it's all connected.
It's all connected. You're not slick.
We know your game.
Honestly, like they seemed like they're really close as a couple, and if they're willing to work, together, and I hope it is amicable, but also I just hope that they're finding peace and happiness, because breakups are never fun. I can't imagine when you've been together with someone for so long that it's easy to split, even though the article did say after years of an on again, off again relationship. So,
maybe those storylines had something going.
I
don't
guess
know.
We'll see. I don't know.
We've been making that joke for a while, and then this happens. It's like,
Which always are those circumstances where it's like maybe those storylines were a signal or something, or maybe those storylines cause something.
It could be, yeah. I mean, that's
that'd be.
How many times has there been an instance where, like, I don't know why out of all the things for me to think of, this is the first thing my mind goes to, but like Green Lantern, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively are a couple, and then it's like, oh, look at that, they happen to split from the people that they're with. Oh, and then they're together. Oh, okay, whatever. And sometimes being in that kind of role with somebody, positive or negative, leads to, well, that couple is actually starting to have feelings for each other, and then that set of people that are having a divorce in like a TV show or something, turns out that they're actually having problems and stuff. So it could be one influencing the other. It could be one of those things that actually had no influence whatsoever, and it just happens to be that they were having fun with the concept of it, but you always have to sort of assume that there might have been a little truth to the story.
I mean, just taking the report for what it was, they split in late 2023, and World's End, which, by the way, I saw, CJ turn on Andrade to help Rusev win, was on December 30th. So it's not like they were working together while this stuff was happening, which is, unfortunate.
What's the thing that Miro kept yelling? Blanking. Something like, "Why have you forsaken me?" or something.
Yeah, like, "You're not real." He did say that when she debuted. Now that you bring that up, though, there was a lot of like, "Yeah, I lost the gold, so she kicked me out of my house."
Yeah. It's just like, I hope that that's not been the case, obviously, for their well-beings and stuff, but it makes you think. I don't know.
Yeah, I would never want to bring that stuff into story, but if they're comfortable with it, more power to them.
Well, this is an interesting transition, but when we get into the idea of like, how many times have we seen a story in pro wrestling be like, oh, the reason that they're doing that is because it's real, and the blurring the lines thing can be a problem. We've had the Sunny Days comment in the past where it's like, yeah, that wasn't good for Brett's marriage. But then again, was there any truth to that? Whatever. If we're talking about the idea of like what happens on screen and then what starts to make you think differently in context, we've talked, of course, with this McMahon lawsuit. Many of the things that Vince has done over the years can be brought back up now, and you can watch a clip and you could be like, ooh, oh God, wow, that probably means more than we thought that it did at that time. And people have been, going around with different things like the whole, Stephanie stuff and whatever. And now we've got some people named in that lawsuit that is another big discussion point. I'm blanking on the other name because it's not a name I'm too familiar with, but Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon and the guy, I forget his name.
There was two more names. I think they were both Brian's, actually.
Oh, there was two
Brian
Brians?
Nurse and Brian Blum and Brian Nurse. Let me look it up real quick.
I thought it was only 3 rather than 4.
No, there were
4.
There were 4, yeah. 4,
okay. So
yeah. So it was Nick Khan, Brad Bloom,
and Brian Nurse.
Yeah, Brian Nurse and Stephanie McMahon. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Bloom and Nurse. Yeah.
Bloom is the COO of the company,
and he was originally, I believe it was said that Janelle was put working in his section.
So he would certainly know that she's basically doing nothing.
Yeah, and I think that the report, which, by the way, came from Brandon Thurston and John Pollock, and they usually do stuff with post wrestling. This was for Front Office Sports. They've done a tremendous job. Like, they're like true, genuine journalism shines through here. And, they uncovered that Nick Khan was the person labeled with a corporate officer 1.
I think number 1.
Yeah. Yeah, it was corporate officer 1 was Khan, Bloom was corporate officer 2, McMahon was corporate officer 3, and Nurse was corporate officer 4.
I just want to bring up real quick here that this is why you don't speculate on things, because corporate officer 1 was the one that had said to Janelle, "Oh, I know exactly who you are," and they had an office on the 4th floor. And this had everybody going, Triple H has an office on the 4th floor. It's Triple H. See, look, it's Triple H. And clearly it's not. This is why you don't speculate.
Yeah, I do find it quite funny, though, that people have just immediately leapt to that by saying, like, oh, you see, it's not 12 officers, 1's not Triple H. He's totally innocent. It's like, yeah, as if he's not, like, part of the upper echelon and married to one of the other corporate officers named in this lawsuit, and the son-in-law of the one who's mainly named in this lawsuit. So it's like, maybe pump the brakes a little bit.
It's better than.
Oh, yeah, it's better than
what it could have been.
It's better than being explicitly named in the thing that is like, but I think that we should like not immediately like start doing like victory laps about the fact that he's not named in it, which is what certain people are doing. But yeah, I think it's important these people were named. It's worth saying that WWE did put out a statement following that, saying that neither Nick Khan nor Brad Bloom were aware of any allegation that Miss Grant was the victim of abuse or unwanted physical contact, nor does the complaint allege that either had any knowledge of such. And of course, none of the things being said in the report suggest that they were in any way involved in any of the abuse that Miss Grant allegedly suffered. But it does at least give some sort of indication that they at least had knowledge of her employment there, and potentially were complicit in, I guess, facilitating her arrangements with Vince McMahon.
Yeah, it kind of strikes me as that you decipher all the legal jargon and all that, like none of that, try to read a terms of service and you'll never come out of that document. But it strikes me a little bit more that they knew something was up. They didn't know what. They weren't privy to specific details, but they were essentially told by McMahon, put this person on the payroll and forget about it. And that could very well be the case. You got to hope that that's their full extent of their involvement, and not that they knew, oh, she's there for that reason, and this is happening with Laurinaitis, and this is happening with Lesnar, and like the different things that are, all these awful stuff we've been hearing about. And that they were just told basically by their demanding, dictatorial, crazy boss, do this. And then they know how crazy he is. So they're like, well, I'm not going to question it, because if I sneeze, he's going to, guillotine me. So the last thing I need to do is ask him why he's hiring this person for a role that I don't understand or something. You got to hope that that's what's happening here. And then that we find out more information about that in the future. But being named as knowing any information whatsoever is not good for those people. So this story is going to continue. Every week there's a new twist to it, and we'll keep covering it on the hot tags. But I do breathe at least a little sigh of relief of knowing that Triple H's name wasn't announced there for that, because it's like one less thing pointing in his direction is still
at least
positive.
Means that they're not being directly targeted, even though the entire company is being targeted.
Mm-hmm.
So it is just a lot of grains of salt, but
yeah,
we're gonna hear about this until there is resolution, and then I'm sure we'll hear about it after. So this is just another piece of information. Again, shout out to people like Brandon Thurston doing the work, and I believe his name is Tim Marchman, who put the article up on Front Office Sports. Like, shout out to them. They're doing genuinely great journalism in a field that has difficulty navigating it, and I think that should be commended.
Thumbs up. Good job, boys. I got some AEW stuff here. We could probably lump the AEW stuff all together in one shot and finish out our WWE content. SmackDown last week, we already talked about the Prime thing. Continuing a lot of the same stories that we already had going on, so nothing really crazy about the LA Knight and AJ Styles stuff, or Orton and Owens and Theory and Waller and blah blah. And Cody slapped The Rock after another long promo. Damage Control cut a promo too. Nothing else.
I get
crazy.
The vibe that you're not that excited about WrestleMania.
It's just like there's a lot of elements of WrestleMania this year that I feel like I was way more excited about at the end of last year, and that now that things are starting to shape up and they're not shaping up in the way that I thought that they had the potential to, I'm just sort of like, what are we doing with Owens and Waller and Theory? Are they just not going to have a match? That's stupid. We're just doing Styles and Knight. Okay, he beat up a TV. It's just a thing. It's nothing special. Cody slapped The Rock. Cool. I'm sure we'll see recaps of it on Raw. And then next week on SmackDown, there'll be another thing. And yeah, we're going to see a recap of that this week. And we're going to have The Rock do his whole, he's going to say bitch. He's going to say something about pie. He's going to make fun of, where are they today?
They're in Memphis. He's singing tonight.
Yeah, so he's going to make fun of Memphis. He'll do his shtick. I won't find it as funny as I did when I was 11. And, and then we'll move on. But that was SmackDown for last week. SmackDown for this week is shaping up to be another one of those. I'm going to do my thing that I've been doing lately and just record it and start it at 9:20 and skip through a lot of things because it's a lot easier to watch it for 40 minutes than for 2 hours. And I don't think that most of these segments are going to be super duper amazing. Like Rey Mysterio's back. Okay. He's going to cut a promo probably about like, oh man, I don't like Santos anymore. If he even does that, because he might just pop up and interfere in the Dragon Lee and Santos match. Orton's going to fight Waller. It's going to be a match. And New Catch Republic are taking on Pretty Deadly. They're going to qualify for the WrestleMania situation, which means I'm already wrong about who I thought was going to be representing SmackDown on there because I thought maybe it would be these two teams and only one of them can. So I guess there you go as a prediction. Do you guys think it's going to be Pretty Deadly or New Catch Republic?
Gotta be New Catch Republic.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty confident that it's New Catch Republic.
Well, that's Pretty Deadly, not pretty confident. Couldn't fucking resist. Yeah, Bailey's going to do something.
The one match that I really don't like here in this whole ladder match scenario, since you brought it up, is on the Raw side of things on Monday. DIY is going to fight the Creed Brothers.
It's and DIY against Creed Brothers, and it's New Day against
Alpha Academy.
And it's Induced Share against Awesome Truth, which the immediate first thing I thought was the same. I was just, man, who did the Creed Brothers piss off to just be non-existent lately?
Oh, I think it's funny that who's to say that they don't win? They could win, and DIY might get left off the card.
I don't think that's going to be the case.
I think considering they've been tied to the whole Awesome Truth thing, I assume that they'll both be in the match.
I would hope so.
Regeneration X, yeah.
Ugh.
So bad. Look, I would much rather it just not be Awesome Truth and Induced Share, and each of those teams could lose to DIY and the Creed Brothers, because then if you put DIY, Creeds, New Day, Judgment Day, New Catch Republic, and I probably would have put Pretty Deadly if I'm honest. That would have been a fun ladder match.
Yeah, because I mean, we don't know what that other match on SmackDown is going to be yet. As far as I'm aware, they haven't announced what the other qualifying match is, but it kind of, that already alone confuses me because I'm like, all right, well, there's not a whole lot of other tag teams that you can mess around with on SmackDown without screwing something up. Because they do have tag teams. Like we've got, for instance, the Street Profits and AOP. But I would think that if you put one of those teams in there, that kind of messes around with what they would do with the Pride and Final Testament if they were to do some kind of big clash at WrestleMania.
Are they going to do anything with them? Do they need to?
And then there's like the LWO and Legado del Fantasma, but it would be weird in my mind to have, even if it's Santos against Rey.
Okay, so the other team is.
Oh, did they
announced it? It's happening tonight. It's LWO against Legado.
Weird, because then that's like, why would they be participating in two things like that instead of just having like, I don't know, Theory and Waller?
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious which way that one's going because like LWO are fighting for the NXT tag. Well, not going to fight for the NXT tag titles at WrestleMania, but they're currently in a tournament for the NXT tag team titles. So they're clearly not going also for the WWE tag team titles at the same time.
Yeah.
So LWO is going to, Legado's going to win this one. Yeah.
It's Legado, and I'd say New Catch Republic.
Which is not the best case scenario as far as just, you know, unless they have something else in mind for other people to do. If you end up not having Street Profits and AOP in there, they should have been in the match instead. But Gallows and Anderson are going to be having the whole stand and deliver thing. Shanti the Adonis and Cedric Alexander don't even get a chance to qualify, so that's great for that tag team. And then you've got who's the other team that I had off the top of my head? There was like the LWO and whatever like that. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't think that that's the best setup. And even if it would be that they don't necessarily do anything with Legado and LWO at WrestleMania, and it's just Rey Mysterio versus Santos Escobar, that already downgrades that segment in my mind, because it's just a match for the sake of a match, and there's nothing, no stipulation, there's no other elements, and everybody's just going to run out and start having stuff anyway. So why have Angel and Umberto, or I guess he's just Berto now, which is stupid, in there to do that twice? And then Pretty Deadly's not in there? I think I would have had Pretty Deadly as that other team.
Well, I presume they'll be on different nights. So the tag match will be on a different night to Mysterio versus Santos, so Legado can get involved in it without appearing twice on the same night.
And maybe that's even their plan, is to have them take the pinfall from some kind of like interference from LWO or something, but I also would have potentially pitched the idea of maybe Carlito and Dragon Lee get in the match instead, because
taking a pinfall.
Berto and Angel.
What?
Oh wait, no, it's a ladder match. That's right.
Yeah,
I'm forgetting that's a ladder match. Well, then never mind about the pinfall. There is no pinfall.
it's one of those ladder matches that ends by pinfall.
Oh, so it's a Randy Savage one.
No, I think, look, first of all, if you do Rey and Santos and you just add a mask versus hair, there's a good match.
That would be, then I'd be okay with it. Yeah.
You're gonna build a mask versus hair match with 2-3 weeks left of the show to go. Of course, it's not going to happen. You do that on another show because you don't need to make that a big deal in this on the show. I know it's the thing that I know that people say that you should make every match at WrestleMania big, but you don't have to. You only need to make like 4 or 5 matches big, and then the rest of them could just are there to fill the card.
I mean, that's clearly their intention with this ladder match, though.
Because then you make the ladder match is obviously there to just like get a load of bodies in there and have some fun, cool spots for that match. But then like you just to have this first real Santos Escobar versus Rey Mysterio one-on-one match that they're going to do on this, like the big like first match of their real feud, and then you build up to either on the next pay-per-view or on a big episode of SmackDown, you do the Miles versus Hair match.
That is true, because this is their first match. You're right.
Because then that's like the blow off that one. So it's like WrestleMania, in many cases, is the end of a lot of feuds, but it also should, in some cases, be the start of certain ones as well.
They have enough history that they could just announce it, especially if they were to do something tonight, like Ray comes out and like they have a big brawl and like Santos rips the mask off or something. Like they could do it, but more than likely they're looking at that at Backlash and they're like, well, that'll be a featured thing at Backlash. It's in France this year instead of Puerto Rico, so it's not like that's going to be the same kind of thing. But like, you know, it gives a boost to something to be a repeat post Mania. And then it's just a filler match that gets thrown in a bad spot and night 1 or night 2. And
so, well, I guess I'll continue waiting until we talk about Raw, but I'm getting really annoyed with the perception of Mania just in general, but especially this year. About
what aspect?
Like, I kind of agree with Callum, even though I know I'm the one that suggested mask versus hair, but I do agree that, like, I think everybody is downplaying what seems to be a pretty good card on paper just because they're like, nah, but it's not what I wanted, though. So, kind of sucks.
So the Sami thing that we'll talk about.
We're going to talk about Sami and Gable, and I think like that's indicative of a huge problem with WrestleMania these days and with fan perception these days, where it's like, guys, they have 5 hours of weekly premium television. Please stop suggesting that things can only happen at Mania or SummerSlam. Otherwise, it's pointless. I'm dead sick of that mentality. This is why Roman's been champion for 2,000 days with no title defenses. because you don't want to see him do anything outside of that Mania or SummerSlam.
Well, that like we can get into that because I agree and I disagree because I don't think that's on the fans. I think that's on WWE setting that up because when you do enough, I mean, we're talking about WrestleMania 40 here, 40 years of WrestleMania where WrestleMania 1's got a different feel to it, of course, but like the general perception has been there's more of a chance that big things happen on big shows than on small ones. And then there used to be back, 10 plus years ago, it's more likely that a title change is going to happen on a pay-per-view, even if it's a B-level pay-per-view, than on an episode of Raw or SmackDown. Of course, things have changed over the years when they start getting into like, well, we need to have some of the stuff on TV because we need to prioritize the ratings a little bit more. And there's been, plenty of title changes that happen on Monday Night Raw and like the Attitude Era and stuff too. Like, let's not ignore those. And there's house shows that like it used to be the house shows were the big draw and not the TV shows. TV shows were only out there to advertise, go to the house shows. So it fluctuates over time. And we're in like a fluctuation period where the people like myself who are more familiar with big pay-per-views, have big moments and everything should be big are like, man, you're downgrading everything and it doesn't feel as special anymore. And I want WrestleMania to be every match is the biggest match you can possibly put on unless it's going to leave you with absolutely nothing left to do afterward. But then I kind of like, I don't know, I make the disclaimer of like, if you do everything that you can for a pay-per-view and you have nothing else afterward and you can't figure it out, you're a bad writer. Figure it out. And if nobody can undo it, then you need to get replaced with somebody who can.
See, but I think it's a weird, like, I don't want to call it Mandela effect, but like WrestleMania was never, oh, we're going to throw everything at the wall. Very rarely does that happen. That's why 17 sticks out in a lot of people's minds, because it was, holy shit, they threw everything at the wall. But if you look at a card like WrestleMania 18, for God's sake, Kurt Angle fought Kane for no good reason. Like, that's the way WrestleMania works. And I'm looking at this card and going, there's some pretty good shit on this show. Is it everything I would have liked to see? No, but I'm not going to lie and say, well, this isn't the card. This isn't the card I would have booked, so it sucks. Like, it's kind of bland, but I think it's going to be a fun WrestleMania.
Well, there's like the Sami Zayn and Chad Gable thing. Let's talk about that because that's one of the elements that you're bringing up. Pretty much the gauntlet match. Gauntlet match goes down. It ends with Sami Zayn and Chad Gable. Sami Zayn wins. They have a little like moment in the ring where Sami's saying something to Chad Gable. We don't know what he said yet. And the response online has been, there's positives for Sami Zayn. There's positives for the match. There's like, no matter who would have won between those two, I would have been happy type of responses. And then there's responses of people saying, we didn't want Sami Zayn to win. We wanted Chad Gable to win because it's quote unquote his story. And that's enough that Booker T was even saying that he had been talking to Sami Zayn and Sami was like, man, I thought that people really loved me. And I see this response online and it's got him really down. And Booker's response is basically, the match was great. You don't need to worrying about what people say online. I, of course, always think that it's funny when people do the whole, like, we've talked before, don't believe everything you read online, but all those reports are actually true. Don't listen to what anybody says online if it's negative. But I'm getting this response online if it's positive. You have to take everything as a gray area. And I think that people edit things for their own safety and like mental health in a way that doesn't make sense. But I agree and disagree with Booker's perspective and with Sami's perspective and with the Gable one too. It's all a matter of how extreme you get with your opinion that throws me off. Because I personally was hoping in that match, out of the group that we had for the gauntlet, that none of them would win. I was hoping that Brock Lesnar would have been cleared of any kind of issue going on. He would have been a surprise final person. He would have won. And we could have gotten that Gunther and Brock match, because that's the match that I want to see more than either of these two ones. But if you told me that that's not an option, and you said it has to be one of these people in this match, I'm already writing off Ricochet. Huge fan of Ricochet as far as like he's great in the ring and all that, but I wouldn't care as much Ricochet against Gunther again compared to Gable or Zayn. Bronson Reed, big fan of that guy too. Shinsuke Nakamura could have a hell of a match with Gunther. Not gonna disregard any of them. JD McDonough's a total jobber, so it would have been pointless. But Zayn and Gable both could have a great match with Gunther. But if you're telling me to judge based off of other characteristics, but other than like if I only watch the match in a bubble, what would I be fine with? I can see why people wanted Gable. Because if there's a title change, I'd rather Gable be the one to beat Gunther than Sami Zayn. For a couple reasons. One being, it would mean way more to Gable than it would be to Zayn. Zayn's been Intercontinental Champion a couple times before. It almost kind of is a detracting point if he wins that, because it's like, okay, well, we know your ceiling is upper mid card, can't quite win the world title, but is constantly in the Intercontinental or United States title range. I'd rather Sami win Money in the Bank. And now that Sami is fighting Gunther, yeah, they're going to have a great match. They already had a match in June. So you already have the whole, like, we've seen Sami and Gunther. We've seen Gable and Gunther. That is a wash. Both those elements, you just throw it out of the argument. But I don't want Sami Zayn to beat Gunther. And then that makes me go, okay, well then Gunther just should retain. And then there's really nothing special there. It's just a rematch of a match that I've already seen. And it's two good guys, whatever. But it's just a match. At least the Gable thing could have had a story of like, if he were to win, it would be a huge moment for him. But maybe they don't want to have Gunther drop that belt. And maybe that's why they don't put Gable in that spot. Maybe they knew if they went with Gable, everybody would expect Gable to win the title. And they would be even more disappointed if he lost at WrestleMania. So maybe they're doing the right thing here. They just happen to do it in a bad way where Gable shouldn't have been the final person in the gauntlet. Maybe he should have lost earlier to Reed or Nakamura, and then Zayn could have been the babyface that beats the heel, and then everybody could have been happy with it. I think it's a botch on their part, and not being able to read what the crowd would be interested in. So I see their points of view. But in your mind, you're kind of thinking just, you should be happy with Zayn and Gunther, it's going to be good, and kind of
I'm not saying I don't see the point in wanting Gable. I'm saying for people to be like, I hate the idea of Sami Zayn against Gunther because I just want to see Gable, because right now I'd be really happy if Gable won. And I'm already, because I saw quite a few of these, fantasy booking, Gunther wins and then Gable beats him at SummerSlam. First of all, there's no reason to keep the title for an extra 4 months on Gunther just so you can get to another tentpole show, when if you do TV right, Gable winning on Raw would feel great. That's first of all. Second of all, I do think Sami Zayn should win, because I do think it's time for Gunther to drop that belt. I think Sami Zayn can be a great babyface fighting champion. Do I want to see him as world champion? Absolutely. But this weird thing where everybody this year seems to be going, can we make it a triple threat? Like, I want Liv Morgan in the women's match. I want Chad Gable in the Gunther. Like, why? Why does it need to be overcomplicated? I get your point with, you could have had Sami Zayn go over Nakamura or something, because that only made people feel worse about Gable. But at the same time, it's like, are you really going to stick behind Gable, or is this just another thing that you want to be like, nah? And as far as the Booker T of it all, I don't know if what he's saying is even true, because he also claimed he tried to get into a fight with CM Punk and whatever. But like, I don't know. I'm just sort of sick of this whole thing being, well, I'm not getting what I want, so let's just skip past the next 4 months of our lives so we can maybe get what I want here. Because that's the whole fucking problem with the Cody thing. You could have had Cody win that title at some point. You just, nope, you gotta hold out for Mania because we just need to keep wasting time when they have more content than ever that they need to fill. I just think the philosophy needs to change completely because we can't keep going. Only 2 or 3 shows matter when there's 5 hours of weekly TV that are supposed to be mandated viewing.
Where do you stand on this whole situation, Callum? Are you more on the side that Rob is, or are you more on the opposite side?
I'm certainly on the side where it gets more good matches and stories being on shows outside of WrestleMania. I think that he is right in the sense that WrestleMania's become such this albatross around WWE's neck, both being like their biggest show and obviously the big thing that gets people talking attention, but that's also has the negative side effect of thinking that every single big match, every single big event has to happen at WrestleMania. And that absolutely should not be the case. As I say, I've always taken the approach with, especially as I've gotten older and I've started to look at things both from just the fan perspective and also the business perspective, sense of you realistically should only be booking like 4 or 5 max, like really top draw, like matches on any given show, be it a episode of TV or on a big pay-per-view, because fundamentally you should be saving other big drawing matches for later on. I know they'll sort of like involve other people as well. I say there's obviously the potential where you can make every single match a big super deal, but at the end of the day, all that's going to do is probably tire out your audience or have other issues attached to it. So I think that with the whole Gable and Zayn situation, I mean, the whole reason why I am on the side of the people that say that Gable should have won is that was the better story. Mm-hmm. Not even the fact that it's like it's Gable's story. It's just about the fact of Gable really wanted to redeem himself from the previous matches he had with Gunther and win the title for his little girl. Whereas Sami's story going into this was, oh fuck, I didn't win any of the qualifying matches for the World Heavyweight title, which is the title I really wanted. So now I've got to find any match possible to get onto the WrestleMania card. I guess I'll fight for the Intercontinental Championship, which is not a good story.
Yeah, it's like his backup plan.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not satisfying as a fan going into it, because you are absolutely right. Sami Zayn's won the Intercontinental title multiple times already. Winning it almost feels something of a downgrade for him, even though Gunther has done a lot of good things with the Intercontinental title. Sami Zayn main evented last year's WrestleMania, and he's been fighting for the world title, and he's been pushing towards that, and that's the story that he's been telling, that he wants to be a world champion. And so him just going to fight for the mid-card title, albeit a mid-card title that feels way more prestigious than the actual world title on Raw, is not satisfying in that way. It doesn't satisfy the Sami Zayn fans that want to see him win the world title because he's just going to fight and potentially win the Intercontinental title. It doesn't satisfy the people that think that Gable was the right choice for it, because the more emotional fueled story that he could have potentially had with Gunther, and it's not really satisfied for Gunther either, for Gunther fans either, because either from your perspective that it was either Brock Lesnar or nothing for him, or it was a case of, oh well, he's got to retain the title because it's not going to be fulfilling if he loses the title to Sami Zayn on this show. So it doesn't feel big enough. It doesn't feel big enough for Gunther to lose the title in this match. And it's not a case of like, you try and counterbalance that, the idea that, oh, it's WrestleMania, it's the big show, it's WrestleMania 40. Surely that's a big event for him to lose the Intercontinental title. But the match itself isn't big enough for him to lose the title. You can't have the longest Intercontinental Championship reign of all time and then just lose it in a random match. Like, the Honky Tonk Man had the longest Intercontinental title reign prior to that, and they did this big whole, somebody, like Ultimate Warrior, who was just being built up at the time and was only been in the company for a little while, comes in at WrestleMania, squashes him in a matter of seconds and wins the title. Like, you don't have anyone that's like you've built up big enough to have that moment with Gunther. You certainly haven't built Sami Zayn up for this particular match. So So yeah, I think that fundamentally, I would say that the Chad Gable match would have been more emotionally satisfying, would give me more of a belief that the title change might happen. Whereas now I go into this match, I think, Gunther has to retain.
And I, kind of like echo what you were saying about like the satisfaction of Zayn winning the Intercontinental title not really being there, because I think part of it is what happens afterward. And you give, for instance, the Chad Gable win. If we assume that the belt changes hands, which, if Gunther just beats Sami Zayn, there's going to be a portion of people that are like, okay, well, then this wasn't fulfilling anyway because they wanted a title change. But, I don't think that necessarily every belt should change hands at WrestleMania either, for that matter. I think that kind of pigeonholes you to like never have a title change hands at Elimination Chamber or Backlash or whatever. But if they were to go with Zayn, I feel like he wins the IC title and immediately afterward, everybody just goes, all right, who's going to beat him? And it's over the course of a short time frame, and he has like a normal Intercontinental title reign, and nothing really is gained out of beating Gunther. And then this whole Gunther setup really didn't pay off as much as it could have. Whereas if you give that win to somebody, it doesn't matter as much what they do afterward about it. If they got that win, they already got their boost. So Gable winning the IC title, it's his first mid-card championship. It gives him this big vote of confidence of like, holy crap, not only did you win your first title, but you beat Gunther. Like, wow, that's a big step up for him. Or somebody like a Braun Breaker would be like a great pick, I think, to beat Gunther. And he could be, booked against him in a Backlash, let's just say, at the next pay-per-view. It'd be a little bit weird to just go straight into that, but it could happen. Or Money in the Bank or something. Or they could fight at SummerSlam. SummerSlam is before Bash in Berlin, but maybe they have something planned for Gunther at Bash in Berlin. Otherwise, I don't know. It kind of all depends on what their plans are for what they would do going forward with the belt. Zayn, Gable, Gunther, people like Breaker. If they have nothing in mind and they just go with Sami Zayn winning because they think it'll be a better moment, and they immediately botch it afterward, like what they did for the tag titles, I still think that the tag title changing hands was the better call for night one of last year, but they followed it up with garbage. And I don't want Sami Zayn getting that spot to beat Gunther, and then the IC title is just as pointless of a title reign as when it was on like Nakamura. And they were like,
don't you think that we run the risk of that just happening once it's on Gable? Because all anyone cares about is the 1, 2, 3 or the tap out. And then, because let's tell the truth here, guys. I'm the only one here watching all 3 hours of Raw because you guys don't have to, and I don't begrudge you for that. I'm just saying no one's really looking at anything outside of, oh, but that would be a really fun moment, and then I won't even care what Gable does with it because I'm not watching the week-to-week show anyway. Like, this goes beyond this program, but they have to change at some point because the thinking in the audience is completely flawed.
See, I think as a writer, I could do more with Gable as champion than Zayn. Because afterward, you can have people that are going to test Gable that he's never fought, since he's never really been at that level before. So whether it's like, has he ever had like a singles feud with like Nakamura, for instance?
I doubt it.
Or like, he hasn't had a singles feud with, say, it's the opposite brand and stuff, but the draft will be coming up at some point. Like, you put him up against a Sheamus and have Sheamus be like, you are not at this type of level. And then Gunther has given that like big win to Gable, and Gable's got that he can hang on. But then other people are like, you got lucky and you have to still keep proving yourself. Sami Zayn's just a guy in that mainstay kind of time frame. So, or not time frame, placement on the card. So if you have Sami Zayn up against anybody, it's like, yeah, I mean, he could beat him. And he's just not going to beat Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Championship at WrestleMania. Other than that, he can beat anybody. You can have him beat Finn Balor, and it's not a surprise. You could have him beat Randy Orton, and people will be like, oh, I mean, I could see it. And I don't think that there's any story to tell with Sami Zayn as Intercontinental Champion afterward, because then he's just, hey, I've won this belt again. I'm going to defend it. And that's it. Whereas Gable is like, wow, I've reached a whole new level, and I didn't realize that the competition gets even harder at that point. But that's if the belt's changing hands. Because, like I said, WWE might just want to keep it on Gunther, and then we might look back on this and go, yeah, him beating Zayn is the better idea than him beating Gable. And then I just kind of wonder, why did they book it as Gable being the last person? Because that's, you set up two baby faces at the end there, and one of them's somebody that people really want to win, and then you're disappointing them. And if you don't know that you're disappointing them, you don't have your finger on the pulse. It's kind of like, if they say they're going to add somebody to that Becky and Rhea match, and then they add somebody other than Liv Morgan, it would be like, well, why are you doing the thing that's just going to upset those people? You don't need to do that in that fashion. And for that matter, it's not going to happen. They seem like they pretty much finished that story this week. So anybody who's wondering if that's going to be the case, no. But that's not the only thing from Raw this week that's been getting backlash. And we got to talk about this Maxine Dupree thing. Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell are in a tag match with Dupree and Ivy Nile. And it ends with Candice just berating Maxine and saying, basically, you don't deserve to be here. You can't lace up my boots. Nobody wants you here. That's just why they boo you. Oh, and by the way, it's a good thing your brother's not alive anymore to see you as like such a failure and all this. So that, upsets Maxine, and then there's a pinfall and whatever. So heel turn massively for Candice. Anybody who's wondering, is Indy a heel too? She seemed upset about it and whatever. But I've seen people that are like, totally up in arms about this, and, some for good reason and some too. I've never been the biggest fan of when they incorporate real life stuff in this fashion. Like, I don't really think you needed to go in the direction of like talking about the dead brother thing. I would assume Maxine signed off on this and that she's comfortable with it. That's, the person who matters the most is if she's okay with that. But they're really turning into the skid with that one dude just posts a thing on Twitter of like, boo Maxine, and then it's like, oh, now we're going full blown into this sympathetic storyline. You're a big fan of this, right, Rob?
I hate it. Like, because again, this is another one of those things that it's just like, all right, it's not that big of a deal. First of all, they clearly signed off on it. Please stop doing this thing where you're so mad and how could they do this? You don't care that much. I'm like, let's just fucking stop. You don't care. Like, it's a fine story. I hate it. I hated everything Candice has done since she's signed with this company. So it is what it is, but at least it gets her on TV. It gets Maxine working with a much better women's wrestler than she is, and that'll help her improve. It gets Ivy and Indy something to do. I'm largely thumbs up on the idea of it happening, but the phony outrage I can live without.
I mean, this segment was like just bad television. It's bad writing. I think that the whole semblance of it is that you can do this sort of angle, even if it does seem on the surface a little bit tasteless, but you need to add some gravitas to it before you do so. Do the groundwork build up an actual feud between these two, and not just two backstage segments where Candice LeRae seems to be a little bit surly than usual. It's more like a case of, no, they need to have like some real animosity between each other before you then bring in the dead brother card. Like, I think that I've seen people, stupid people and like uber, like don't phrase it. Yeah, I mean, like the uber feminist type people saying like that. Oh well, Christian Cage can say stuff about dead fathers, and that's totally fine. But then you have Candice LeRae say one comment about Maxine's dead brother, and apparently that's all really bad. Like, but Christian can do that, and it's fine. Yeah, but the whole story behind Christian doing these comments about people's fathers was the feud with Jungle Boy, where it had long been established that his father, Luke Perry, had passed away before he joined AEW. And then Christian Cage took on the role of a father figure to him, being a mentor for him for several months, where they won the tag team titles, and then he turned on him after they lost the tag titles and beat the shit out of him, and then started coming up with all this stuff in order to get with him on a far deeper emotional level. There is a lot of rationale behind that. There's like a build up towards him taking it to that deeper level, and then it came a point where it's just become a meme. Essentially, people take it as like this jokey thing, even though it's very real, because basically everyone that he seems to feud with has a dead father that he can just exploit in that regard. But it's a case of
even when Sting had the thing saying that he that his father had passed away, I saw immediately the meme of like people just having like Christian like waking up being like, what?
But that's the thing, like you do that as part of the story, and then he does it with someone else, and then it's just part of his character now. This is part of what he does. Whereas Candice LeRae's character prior to this, like literally like 3 weeks ago, was just, Candice LeRae, babyface tag team partner of Indy Hartwell. They team together as the babyface team against the tag team champions at Elimination Chamber. And then literally like a couple of weeks later, she's just already like going after bullying Maxine Dupree, and saying about how she how a dead brother wouldn't be proud of her. It's like, you can't go from 0 to 60 that quickly. Yeah, so I think it's just like poor writing. It's just there for shock value. It's very Vince Russo.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably term it like that. It's very, very like car crash TV, reality TV, soap opera bullshit drama. I'm not saying they're like, as I say, there are bits of soap opera that do work in all aspects of wrestling, but it's just a case of, I don't think that it's just gone way too quickly and just trying to add shock value to what was literally a 2-minute match that ended with Indy Hartwell kicking Maxine Dupree with a really lame big boot and pinning her.
That was a bad finish.
And so so this whole segment was just trash, like bottom of the barrel stuff. And I think that the kind of the discourse for it should just be focused on the fact that it's a really trashy segment, really bad writing, really poor putting together, more than it should be about. Because obviously because it's taster stuff, but that Maxine would have agreed to Candice saying that. It's not like they just said it out of order and like just I'm just going to bring this up. I found this stuff out online, so I'm just going to throw it into my promo without confirming it with you first.
Yeah, I doubt Candice is that horrible of a person.
Yeah, because the whole story is like we don't know anything about Maxine Dupree's family, like her real family, obviously. LA Knight notwithstanding, but but it's just the idea of we haven't heard. She's never talked about that, or if she has, I'm not aware of it. Again, I'm not someone that watches week to week, but like that hasn't been like a big part of her character journey. It's not like did she cut a promo in any time in the last like month or so where she talked about trying to make her brother proud or anything like that?
No, they never did. They never did. They immediately wanted to hotshot this. And again, I completely agree with Callum. It's crappy writing. It's a crappy story. I'm not a fan that this is what they're doing with them, but I am a fan of them using them. I just don't think that. First of all, I thought the immediate like, oh my God, this guy booed Maxine Dupree was a bit much. And I think this is a bit much. And it's like, all you're saying to people watching is, please continue to heckle our performers, even if people get all up in arms about it on social media, because hey, we're actually using it. So,
I think that there's a lot of things to this that could have been done a lot better storytelling wise. Like if they would have had, for instance, Maxine and Ivy beat Candice and Indy, and then Candice is even more upset afterward, and then she has some kind of segment the next week where it's like, Maxine's like, well, I really want to, get better in the ring and all because of here's my brother's situation. And then you introduce that. And then Candice pulls out the whole, like, here's the big zinger to be like a major heel. Then, people are invested in it more. And there's going to be a certain contingent of people that are going to look at this and they're going to say something that I hate when people make this kind of discussion. It's very much similar to the whole, like, well, why do you care about the Prime logo being in the ring? It's making them money, and that's a good business decision. Some people are going to look at this and they're going to go, but it's getting you talking, and then that's exactly what they needed. It was a win on their book, and that's just proving that they understand the business. I don't subscribe to the any news is good news, even if it's bad news, because you're just getting your name out there type of a thing. Ever. And that's, again, you get into that gray area of like, people say that, and then when something bad happens that doesn't work out, then they go like, oh, well, I didn't want that to happen. And you're like, yeah, because the rule doesn't actually apply if you got a fucking brain. It's just, change is always good unless it's bad change, and then change isn't good. Okay, well then change is good when it's good. Shut up. So I think that this is like, I could see people just being like, it's tasteless and I don't like it. And I could see people going, well, I'm more interested than ever. And then there's people like the three of us that are like, well, this is kind of tasteless, but if you could have done it in a better way, then we'd be more on board with it. But why are we having this discussion to begin with? A guy booed Maxine. Get over it.
I mean, like I said, like the most optimistic point of view I can give is that happened, and now these four people who weren't really getting used are getting used.
Yeah.
That is a win. Yes. The rest of it doesn't need to be this big talking point.
As far as talking points from NXT this week.
Speaking of things that just randomly occur out of the blue, let's talk about Lash Legend and Trick Williams.
Yeah, that was the thing. For anybody who didn't see it, Trick Williams cut a promo about Melo. They're going to have a match at Stand and Deliver. Obviously they were. Metaphor interrupted, and then Trick Williams kissed Lash Legend, and that's going to be a story leading up to Melo and Trick. Why?
because if you don't know, because
they're blinking backstage online, and that's it.
Like, I guess Trick and Lash are in a real relationship, which is fine. Zero against that. It's just, it was weird that the closing segment of NXT was Metaphor randomly interrupts Trick Williams. The whole time Trick is like, well, the way Lash is looking at me, I know I'm the hottest guy in NXT. And then they kiss, and then
she's got the vapors.
Yeah, and then she's just like, medical. Good segment. It was just sort of like, wait, did I miss a moment backstage? Wait, did I turn my head? Or no? And people are just like, no, they're just really dating. And it's like, cool, I didn't know that. I don't know if I really care. Like,
it's just a weird side quest that's happening.
It has to be for them to have Melo target her, so that there's more heat for Stand and Deliver, because otherwise I don't know why you would bother.
I mean, I understand the reason why you would do it. It's like, I think it even though it's a segment that really kind of makes little, I don't say logical sense, but it kind of comes out of nowhere. I think the reason they did this is twofold. One is that they see Trick Williams as their big breakout babyface star, which he already is, and part of that doing that is to make him a sex symbol. And you do that by making him seem like he's in some way irresistible to women. And part of that is just like, essentially had no interaction with Lash Legend on screen prior to this, has one interaction with her, she's in his arms pretty much immediately. That's what you do. You realistically, I don't see why people seem to think about actually both men and women's side of things, a good way to make a babyface is to have them as a sex symbol.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't disagree with them doing this. I think it's a weird side quest to do now.
Oh no, yeah, it's a bit of a side quest now. But I think also the main purpose they're doing this is because they're going to turn Lash Legend babyface.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Oh yeah, I think she's
because
from Metaphor.
Yeah, she'll split from Metaphor. I think that you can lay the groundwork now of this because I think that you're going to have Trick and Carmelo have their match at Stand and Deliver, which I believe, as far as we know now, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just a match.
Yeah,
it is just a match.
Yeah, there's no stipulation yet.
Okay. So what I think is going to happen is that they're going to have that match. Trick's going to beat Carmelo in a straight-up singles match. And then what's going to happen is that they're going to foster a little bit more of the relationship between Lash Legend and Trick Williams on screen, both during this and then immediately after the match at Stand and Deliver. And then Carmelo's going to do something to Lash Legend, and that's going to lead to a more violent, like, no holds barred type match that'll happen at the next big show for them.
I just kind of can't see Carmelo like attacking Lash. So it's he needs to get like some of the other people in the women's division to do something or whatever. Then that kind of like all gets muddied up a little bit.
But wouldn't that make him the biggest heel in the company if he was to do that?
Oh yeah, I mean, if they have him like hit his finisher on Lash, then it's going to be like boom.
I think that he should do it.
Honestly, God, they just have him like on the back, obviously, but if they just have him swing a chair intentionally, not like and Trick moved intentionally, hit Lash Legend in the back of the chair, that would be all anybody would talk about for at least a good week. Because, oh my God, we haven't seen that kind of level of violence since the Attitude Era. I think it's a good deal as long as they follow through. It's just, it happened so, like,
random.
Now
yeah,
there's
this. Randomly.
Yeah,
I know it's a random thing to do, but I think it's a case of, I think it's just, at least in the initial part, it's about just making Trick an even bigger star by having this association with him as well, or at least giving him this kind of like trait or added charisma, essentially. So
also gives him somebody else to feud with in the meantime, because he could beat up Ora Mensa and Noam Dar.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that if for some reason Carmelo's not around to tell the story at the moment, or is like going in and out of it prior to Stand and Deliver, then I think that this is a good side thing for him to do. I think that despite the kind of random nature of it, I think the segment is actually pretty effective.
It's interesting to see that they threw this out there now and how they're gonna, like, hopefully they've got some plans in mind. Like, yeah, maybe they do something where it's like Legends on the ring apron and Melo does something where he bumps into her and then she flies backward and falls through a table or something, like, I don't know, like that. I don't think that they're actually going to have him like punch her in the face or something.
I think it should be way more deliberate.
Yeah, I think that it shouldn't be some sort of silly, ambiguous thing. It should be a deliberate attack on her to get to Trick.
Like, these people are professionals.
Yeah,
he can lightly tap her with a chair, and she's
taller than Melo and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't like. You guys don't think that that's going to happen, though, right? You just wish that they would.
No, at this point, I'm just saying what I would like to see. Yeah. I do think at some point she has to get hurt at Melo's hands. It just probably won't be with the level that I'm suggesting that they should do.
I can't say absolute certainty that that's what they do, but I'd hope that somebody in that storyline, I hope that Lash would say, you've got to do that if that's where you want to go with it. Like, that's
the best case scenario for sure.
Because it's a really smart way to get immediate heat. Because I know that some people will be out there saying it's like, oh, you can't have a man hit a woman in any context in this thing because like no one ever wants to see that. But yeah, well, the point of the matter is that he's going to do that and he's going to be a dick for it. It's not a case of like it's in the middle of just a random match that they're just having an intergender match or whatever. It's a case of no, he's doing that to get to Trick. And like you could even tell the story of like in the match between Trick and Carmelo, it looks like Carmelo's got the upper hand, and then Lash Legend comes down with the chair or comes down with a weapon or something like that and beats the shit out of Carmelo with it. and then you get her recompense for it as well. So yeah, I think all around, if that's, again, we don't know because they've only just done this one segment on the main event of this last episode of NXT. We don't know what the long-term direction of this is, but if that is the path they want to go down, I think that you can do it in a way which would make both Lash and Trick Williams Trick's already feels like the biggest star in NXT right now, but you can make Lash Legend the biggest female star and the true power couple of NXT by taking that approach and using Carmelo as the fuel for that.
There's definitely ways that they can work this in that can be very beneficial for all three, Lash, Trick, and Mello.
And that's the exciting part too, is you can look, if they have Mello do this, you know what that opens the doors for? Hey, now we can start doing angles like this again without it being oh my God, let's have a whole discussion about man-on-woman violence. If you do this once in a blue moon, this can create great stories.
Hey, look at Baron Corbin and Becky. That got one of the biggest reactions that entire year from anything. It was just oh shit, he hit the end of days on her. Wow, we can do that.
I think it would be great. But my whole issue with this was just that it was out of the blue. But
yeah,
hey, you put it out there, go with it. I'm all for that.
Although I do think that we can already say metaphors hold Noam Dar being I'm catatonically depressed. I'm going to snap right out of it and say we're on to bigger and better things. And then the next week he goes, we're on to bigger and better things. And, oh, you're kissing Lash and that's going to be the thing. And we're just going to get beaten up. It's you're not moving on to anything bigger or better. This isn't going in a good direction for Noam Dar whatsoever. With a lot of other weird things that happen on this episode of NXT, though. LWO beat OTM. They're qualifying for that triple threat thing that's happening, but they're not going to get that title match. It's Wolf Dogs against Good Brothers. Oba Femi, not the uber feminists that you were just talking about, the Oba feminists. Super confident that he's going to...
Much more tolerable.
Yeah. He pretty much wrecked Brooks Jensen. Josh Briggs was kind of sporting him ringside. Dijak came up a little bit later, or a little bit earlier before the match, and we had the whole situation with them. So it kind of looks like it might be Femi versus Briggs versus Dijak triple threat at Stand and Deliver.
Odds triple threat this year.
Yeah. Mr. Stone lost to Lexis King. Von Wagner carried him out, so kind of seems like it's just Von Wagner versus Lexis King. They had this whole thing with the family. They officially welcomed Luca Crucifino in. They had their rigatoni. Looked like it was maybe rigatoni alla vodka or something. I don't know for sure. Looked pretty good though when I got some vodka sauce last night. Talked about Stax being the one that played Trick Williams' theme. I liked how they kind of had him be yeah, I'm the one who did that, whatever. And then they had Ilya Dragunov pop up and they basically tried to hype their match by having them throw Dragunov into the trunk of the car, brought him over to the bridge that they've thrown 2 dimes and Pretty Deadly off of, and say, I could do this, but I won't, and I'm going to take that belt from you. And Dragunov's like, nah.
Yeah.
You said it in a funny way when NXT was happening. You're like, oh, I guess they're going to just go to all the extra random places.
Yeah.
So it's they're going to get their hair cut and stuff.
They have nothing to do for them. So they're just all right, you're going to build the match the way that Braun Breaker and Apollo Crews built their match by just fishing and going to the diner. And okay, sure. That's the story. I'm all right with that. Look, NXT... while it's not great, it does a lot of interesting things that I think draws a different audience. It really does. I know people who NXT is their favorite show of the week because it's a different wrestling show. And they're on to something. I'm not thrilled about a Tony D title run, but that's okay. Because
he's got to win. At this point, he's got to win.
He's going to win.
I hated Roxanne Perez's promo.
The best way I can sum this up is Roxanne Perez grew up a major wrestling fan. She grew up a fan of AJ Lee. all wrestling fans ever want to be heels. They grow up, they want to be heels. It's fun to be a piece of shit.
Acting in general, it's more fun to be the bad guy, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just that's what this is. Cora Jade went down. Roxanne stepped in. Roxanne's getting a chance to do the whole, I'm a villain now. But the promo wasn't great.
No, it was very... Look, Roxanne's already working against a lot of that just by her appearance alone. The way that certain people, it would be the opposite, you know. It's harder to trust into big, scary, brute dude is a lovable babyface in the way that, you know, Eric Rowan was never going to have the same kind of treatment as John Cena. Let's put it that way. And you get your lovable baby faces like the goofball types, and you get, you know, Mick Foley, fantastic baby face, doesn't look like Cody Rhodes, totally different type of character and all. But when you get Roxanne and she's the smallest person on the roster and she's out there being all like, I'm super tough and mean and whatever, it's like, oh, come on. You know? And she's not a great promo at pulling that off to begin with. So it's like, I don't believe any of it anyway. And what she's saying was just like the most generic, drab, drivel stuff anyway. So it's nothing super interesting there. It's just, I'm upset that I lost the title and nobody did anything about it. And they rushed the hell out of that segment too at the end there. That was really awkward because it was like, Ava came out and she's like, nah, we didn't because, and then Tatum Paxley attacked, and then they start playing Roxanne's music, and then they cut to, I forget what it was backstage, but something backstage really fast. I think it was like Ridge Holland or something. And then they cut to a commercial break.
Video package, and they came back and somebody else was already in the ring.
It's like they ran out. They were like, oh crap, it's like it's 8:23 and we have to have this match start and a commercial break or whatever in the next 2 seconds. Like, so she went long on the promo, it seems, and I just hated that segment. I didn't like a whole lot of the different little backstage things that they did. They did this thing with Sol Roca and Carmen Petrovich, where Petrovich is like, oh, thanks, congrats for coming back. A lot of people are like Blair Davenport, though. We got a lot of bitches around here, and Lola Vice is like, hey, I overheard this. I'm a bitch. and fuck you, you trash fighter Petrovic. We're gonna fight.
Well, what is there not to like about this?
And then Brittany Reese cartwheels in, and she's like, "I'm not a bitch."
Well, what is the? I don't understand what you don't like.
It was just fucking weird.
They were all sitting around their little cubbies and had this interaction.
It's so weird. And then that's not even the weirder one because Thea Hale. She's supposed to team up with somebody, and JC Jane is off hanging out with Jasmine Nix or whatever, so it can't be with JC. So she gets Kalani Jordan in there. Okay, makes perfect sense. Kalani gets attacked backstage. Fallon Henley joins Thea Hale instead. Makes perfect sense again. I've already talked about this, wrote it up on a different thing or whatever. Thea, Fallon, Kalani, and Ren Sinclair potentially could have a 6 or 4 on 4 type match. But they, Kiana James and Izzy Dean beat Hale and Henley, partially because JC Jane and Jasmine X are ringside, and they're just, we're heels now. We just don't give a shit about anything anymore. And Thea Hale cuts a promo afterward about how she thought of JC Jane as a sister, and she idolized her, but she's toxic. Ha ha ha. And even if you think I'm a loser or whatever, the old Thea Hale is back. And then she runs around the ring, and they might as well have to put that woo 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 woo, because it's all she does. And it's like the reactions to them were all just kind of staring at her like, huh? And Riley Osborne's like, good for you. And then No Quarter Catch Crew comes over and they're like, yeah, we're gonna pick a fight with you, asshole, because we're somehow upset that you're watching the girl that you like on screen. Which then gets Axiom and Nathan Fraser to pop up, and then they're like, hey, fuck you guys for, being heels. This is a mess in some ways. I get where they're going, of course, but no, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen in my life or anything. I'm not going to go that far, but it was just sort of like, it was a whirlwind. And I guess we're kind of building up Osborne is going to fight Dempsey for that Heritage Cup.
Well, maybe he's getting the shot next week.
Oh, it's that been made official? I've totally bypassed that if that's the case.
Yeah, because you bypass
I usually don't pay a whole lot of
announcements.
attention to the next week, so because it's usually the same things that they've already said earlier. But
no, but he's getting the shot next week. Look, I think the Thea Hale thing was fine. I just thought it was weird that it was out. It felt like more of a backstage segment than an out in front of the audience segment.
And running around Fallon Henley in the ring.
Yeah, because that was just like super. Like what was the point of this? So for context, Thea Hale's whole deal started back at the Great American Bash when Andre Chase threw in the towel on her. They never resolved that. It just sort of became, JC's my friend now. Which, by the way, JC was a very good friend.
Up until last week, basically.
Who helped Chase get their school back and everything. Up until last week, when she just decided, fuck you. I'm going to go hang out with this chick because she's cooler. What? Like, that's part of where I'm missing here. But again, as I said on Twitter, get this show to the CW like yesterday.
Yeah.
They have the perfect cast for it. And
I mean, they had Ariana Grace beat Gigi Dolan by DQ because Gigi Dolan low blowed Ariana Grace, and then now she's gonna do like a princess makeover or some shit. Like this is so CW. You know what's gonna happen, right? They're gonna go to CW and then they're gonna stop doing this
stuff.
And
they're gonna be a complete straight wrestling show.
Yeah, and then it's gonna be like, what? Yeah. Anyway, that's and Sean Spears beat Rich Holland because Rich Holland is not embracing the hate. Yeah, it's that John Cena thing again with Kane. That's NXT.
Let's do some big business.
Let's get into AEW stuff. Collision being preempted next week for March Madness. That's the reason why? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
You guys said that Rampage is going to be live. So they're going to kind of offset it a little bit that way. I know that you guys are excited in particular about Bryan Danielson against Katsuyori Shibata
coming tomorrow. Up. That's amazing because Shibata's visa issues are worked out. And they are doing the opposite of WWE. Just do the match. I completely agree. You never know when these two are going to ever get the chance again. For context, they're both retired, period, full stop, for a long time because of brain issues. So yeah, let's just do the match.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you should just do the match when you can. It doesn't have to be, wait until All In to do the match or whatever. Sometimes just do that because there are lots of people that you want to see against these people. So do it. Have the big match. And then if you really, if there's something more to tell there, you can have a rematch in the future. It's not like that. Once you do it once, you can never do it again. That makes perfect sense. Here's something I guess let's talk about Big Business from the start. Obviously, with the name Big Business and with everything that was going on, we all knew that Mercedes Moné was going to make her debut, and she did. She stole Gunther's theme and made it infinitely worse because instead of just being a good song, Dvorak has a great, song to begin with. But I absolutely hate this CEO nickname already. And I hate that the theme has the crowd chanting in it.
I'll get used to it, bub.
It's fucking annoying as all hell. I had to mute my screen because this went on forever on this episode, both beginning and the end of the night. It was just like CEO. Oh my God, I get it. It's not even a good nickname. I'm just going to have to mute it all the time because I hate it. And the nickname's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It's just, I don't know, why the boss thing you can play around with a little bit more. She can't call herself the boss because they got the trademarks and stuff. But then you just go with CEO. It's lame. I didn't like her promo either, to be honest. I thought that was very generic, and I know it meant a lot to her. I'm glad that she had her moment and all that stuff. Like, I'm not taking away anything like that. Just as far as the promo itself, I was hoping for something more entertaining and something that, I don't know, triggered something more in me. It was just the very, very generic, I'm super happy to be here promo. And nothing that I took away from it other than she is, in fact, there, as we all knew. Of course, she's great in the ring and all that other stuff. Like, that's, this is not like, oh, she's a failure or anything that's crazy, like that kind of thing. Like, come on, ridiculous. But yeah, I thought it was kind of a dud, personally.
So we're just talking about the intro. I thought the opening segment was fine. Like, I actually think the CEO chant's probably going to be the best thing about the earliest portion of her new act, because the people are really behind her. I understand your point. I understand why you're like, but it gets the crowd engaged, and she felt like a star. That being said, just kind of not my worst fears, but like, kind of the thing I didn't want to happen happened, where it was like, all right, they did the CM Punk treatment where she comes out, then she's here, and she threw in a little line about Willow and Riho being the main event. And I was like, that's weird. But she, cool. She's here. She's all elite. I'm excited. Mercedes is my favorite women's wrestler. I'll get used to the new theme. It's probably better than her New Japan theme. And we'll see where this goes. But just the opening, I thought it was like 7 out of 10. Like, it was good. It wasn't blow me away, but it was good.
How did you feel about her debut, Callum?
I was a big fan of the presentation of her. I think coming in immediately and like driving in the Mercedes was a nice touch. Like, just Renee Young doing some backstage work, and then her coming out. I'm a big fan of the theme. I think that it works for her. I like the CEO chant because, I mean, this is a thing that we're seeing in more and more wrestling things nowadays. We've got Will Ospreay has his Ospreay section where he gets the crowd to do it. Like, I think I'm a fan of any theme music that induces a call and response in it, and it's going to get super over with the crowd. The crowd in Boston was already cheering for it. She's going to get the CEO chant. CEO name is great because not only is like it's an iteration of the boss thing, it's easy to chant as well because you chant CEO. It's the 3-letter approach that wrestling fans have become accustomed to, so that works out perfectly as well. I liked her promo. Again, it wasn't like the most blow away thing. It definitely wasn't at CM Punk first dance like levels, but it was good. It was heartfelt. It felt realistic. I think it was better than any promo she's cut in like either WWE or New Japan, because it felt like it was structured, but she was speaking from the heart. So I think there was a bit more emotion and weight to it. I found it quite funny that she had a costume change for the main event segment from where she was wearing beforehand. She looks like a star. She looks like $1 million. All the things you want to just throw at her. She's going to be a huge deal in AEW just based on this presentation alone. I think it's going to be like a real big thing, and it's going to shake up the women's division quite a deal.
Does she seem bigger than the roster?
No.
I'm good. To me right now, she does. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I know what I know and I have my biases, obviously. Cause
I don't want to throw in the idea of like she's bigger than the roster. Instance, like everybody that's like a semi-big star that would come from WWE feels bigger than this roster, because it's just not the case.
Well, no, but I think it's a lot different for her.
She's bigger than anyone in their women's division.
Yes, that's what I mean. Because that's who she's fighting. That's what I mean.
Yeah. Compared to anyone else in that division, she's definitely a big star. And the aim now is to get people to that level through her being there for however long that she signed for the company for.
She signed multi-years, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that could be, 2.
Yeah.
But more than likely it's 3.
By the way, I just want to put this out there because there was a lot of hoopla about the fact that she said, one day I will be back in WWE. She is 32 years old. Stop acting like she can't spend 10 years at AEW and then go back and have a fun couple of manias. Like, she's very young. Everybody will be fine. But to kind of continue the Mercedes talk, For me, the main event is where it loses a little bit for me because it just felt like they were the main event because Mercedes was there.
Mercedes must pose.
And look, I get that you have to eventually take those steps for it to become the norm, but this felt so like, don't tell me Riho and Willow were always the plan to main event a Dynamite that also featured a world title match, a lame one at that, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that.
and Okada and the Young Bucks teaming against Kingston, Pac, and Penta. Like, that felt a little forced to me.
Well, to take Callum's catchphrase and say fundamentally, the reason why they did it is entirely transparent. They just wanted to bookend this with Mercedes. And if they didn't have the Mercedes element to it, they wouldn't have had Willow and Riho in the main event by any means. It would have been the Okada match. And my issue is less so this being the main event. It's more so, why didn't Chris Statlander come out and help Willow?
They did eventually
explain it.
They did explain that.
What,
it was
like a YouTube thing or something?
Media. Yeah, social media thing. There's essentially, she was backstage getting treatment at the table, saying that she was saying that she got attacked backstage prior to it by Julia and Sky Blue, and so that's why she didn't come out.
They should have done that on the air.
Well, we don't know whether it was. We don't know whether she did, or whether or whether she was just pretending that she's been attacked for it because they're clearly doing Chris Statlander heel turn soon. So I think that she did then cut a promo saying she's going to take them out next time she sees them. But I think that the real path this is going down is that we're going to get Willow versus Chris Statlander soon. I mean, I think that, like, at least with of course, making the main event, there's a transparent reason for doing that, but it doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. And more along the lines of, there is at least a connection of having these two in it because Willow Nightingale was the last person that was in the ring with Mercedes Moné prior to her recent hiatus. So there is at least
she's fighting Willow. Like, she even did an interview with Renee afterwards that went up on social media yesterday. She's targeting Willow first.
It seems odd that, like, she targeted Willow, but then she attacked Julia and Sky Blue, so it seemed like she'd be going for the TBS title instead. But I guess, you know,
right now
the aim is her to fight everybody at some point or another. So she might as well start with Willow.
Right now, she's doing the bit of, like, I don't really know Willow. We had the one match. I haven't had a real chance to talk to her, but I wasn't gonna let her get jumped like that kind of thing.
Not my favorite way to use her. I'll say that. There's worse. There's better.
That's
I was,
kind of where I sit.
More than anything else, I was just like, oh shit, now I gotta hear that stupid CEO theme again. And just CEO of the crowd again. I was just like, all right, I get it. So I had been recording because I, record it and start watching it the same as I do with SmackDown. So I was like, after a minute of that, I was like, I'm just hitting the fast forward button and waiting to see if anything happens. Nope, it's just that. Okay, I'm glad I skipped 4 more minutes worth of yay, Mercedes is here. Because I'm like, all right, we've known that she's going to go there for like 7 months or something. Even actually more. As soon as she left at WrestleMania, it was like, oh, okay, I guess she's going to AEW then.
I wouldn't go that far, but we've known for sure for like 3 months. And
I just assumed post Mania and we'll post the whole Naomi exit. It's like, that's where she's going to go. So it's just been a waiting game for me. And now it's like, all right, she is here. Can I see her level up that division? That's what I want to see. I don't want to see any of the other crap. Doesn't matter to me. Same as with CM Punk. I mean, go back to the other things and it's like, all right, let's see what CM Punk can do. It's cool that he's there. Yeah. But I, even, the only thing that annoys me more on this episode than the CEO chant, that Wardlow match, man.
Wardlow just losing kind of sucks. And like what is the Undisputed Kingdom? Like, it feels very much like an idea that they based their entire TV around, that they have now decided to not.
It's kind of like how the Pinnacle just sort of crumbled and failed.
Yeah.
At least with the Wardlow thing, like, I mean, Bennett and Taven, they're holding belts, and Roderick Strong's got the international title, so that's good and all. And Adam Cole's there in his wheelchair. I just don't see the point in having Wardlow win a number one contenders match so he can lose on an episode of TV and then just immediately go like, okay, well, it's the Swerve and Joe one-on-one match that we're building to. And Wardlow was kind of a stepping stone. And now there goes any of the extra momentum that he had won back of like, I'm going to win that world title at some point. We're going to do something here. No, now you lost again. You might as well just not bother to come back and fuck off. Joe couldn't have beaten anybody else. He'd be Wardlow out of all those people.
I guess from the Joe perspective, it gives Joe strength because he gets his win back.
It does. If you're willing to sacrifice Wardlow for the sake of boosting Joe up a little bit more, it means more to Joe to beat Wardlow than if he would have beaten like Dante Martin for sure. But I just don't know if it's worth it to do that to the Wardlow character. Because then once again, he has to just be like, back of the line, you lost, you keep saying you're going to win that championship, and you keep looking like a complete jackass. Like, I think this was a bad decision.
I bit into the hype, and I felt like a little bit of a jackass because I was expecting Max to return here. And I was a little surprised that, oh, Joe just won. Oh, okay, we're just moving on. Got it. Cool.
I mean, I'd say I wasn't personally that offended by it. I think that, yeah, Wardlow cut a good couple of promos the last couple of weeks, but that's been the most interested I've been in him for about 18 months. I think there's just a disconnect with him. I just think that he doesn't have what it takes to be a top main event star, at least not in this current, until he finds another gear. And yeah, so I think that having him being like a TV title match before what the obvious route you're going down, which is the Swerve Strickland like one-on-one match with Samoa Joe for likely at Dynasty, that's the bigger match with the bigger star. So yeah, Wardlow gets sacrificed in the meantime. I'd say we don't know where it's going to go just yet. It's more about him losing is obviously could be very harmful to his character, but it almost could be a case of what's his reaction to that loss. Like, what does that do to him? How does that change things? We know that when Jeff is back, that's likely when Wardlow gets back into the equation. So he'll be having matches with MJF after that point as well, and in lieu of Adam Cole being unavailable to wrestle. But yeah, the whole Undisputed Kingdom thing is just an offshoot of an angle and a whole storyline that AEW has spent the last 3 months distancing themselves from because they realise that that's just not who they are or who they want to be anymore. Like, they've moved away from the whole bro chat shows and the MJF thing. Of course, they're going to still have the Undisputed Kingdom around because when MJF comes back, that's the natural feud for him and they want to tie a bow on it. But because of all of the injuries and the issues and the fact that the storyline just hasn't gone over to the level of other things going on, that it feels like, again, one of these other just things that's hanging around in AEW that doesn't have a huge amount of purpose or interest behind it. Especially when you have these big stars like Ospreay and Okada and Mercedes coming in now and like shaking things up and getting people super excited about like all different matchups and possibilities and the rivalries that you could see there. This just feels like it almost, even though it was only formed like 3 months ago, it feels like a product of a different era. And
it seems like they should just cut bait. Like keep the Undisputed Era type group together, but throw Wardlow out of it.
Well, you need to have Wardlow because of the MJF thing. And until
at this point, I don't know.
Well, until if MJF comes back, until Adam Cole's healthy enough to compete, you can't really do anything with MJF then either. I think that you just have Wardlow around because he can have a match with MJF on a pay-per-view, and then you build up to whatever the MJF and Adam Cole one-on-one match is when Adam Cole's healthy to compete. I say it's not ideal. It's kind of like one of those segments on Dynamite or some other wrestling shows that I'm probably just going to fast forward through for the most part because it doesn't interest me. Like I don't really enjoy much what the Undisputed Kingdom are doing. If Roderick Strong's wrestling, then I'm going to watch that. If like Taven and Bennett are in an interesting tag team match, so I'll watch that. But if it's anything to do with Wardlow or even Adam Cole at this point, and MJF, I'm probably just going to move past all that until MJF can move on and do something more interesting again, which hopefully involve him turning heel again.
I just don't know how they do anything to build Wardlow back up at this point, because if his reaction to it is, oh, I'm still upset that I keep losing and I'm a joke, and then he doesn't do anything, he's worse than he's ever looked. And if he beats everybody up, well, he's already beaten everybody up. So unless he beats everybody up and it serves a purpose, it's the same character and there's no difference. So he might as well be the same as like when Shinsuke Nakamura, for instance, is like, you know, oh, I'm going to be taken real seriously now. And it's like, you're not winning that belt. Shut up. Like, I don't buy it. They have to sell me on it. And he has to do something that makes it seem like there's actually a change. So if it's like Wardlow versus MJF in a couple months, and in the meantime, Wardlow doesn't do anything but beat jobbers, then when he fights MJF, I'm not going to give a shit.
No, well, I wouldn't give a shit if he was even doing something interesting in the meantime. As I say, I really don't give a crap about this group or this rivalry, but that's but let's say it's a product of, like, as I say, it feels like it's a product of a bygone era in AEW that they want to see the back of, and these are just the kind of the stragglers off the back of it that they created as the results of it, that they're just trying to just being kept around until they can finally flush them out of their system entirely. So yeah, that's just the situation we're in right now. There's always certain things on any episode of Raw, SmackDown, AEW, Dynamite, Collision, anything like that. There's certain bits that you just like have no interest in and watch, and certain people have more interest than others. This is just one of those things that's not going to click with me at all, likely, unless they find some way to make it more interesting. But yeah, and I'd say like the Wardlow thing about you got to find a way of heating him back up. So like, in my mind, I'm kind of in the mindset now, and I share this with like a lot of other people in the AEW roster. Do you? Or do you just cut bait and just move on and focus on a lot of other people that you've recently signed, and a lot of other people on your roster that have a lot more potential?
I think you just move on.
I don't know. I kind of want them to just release Wardlow.
I would too. I want them to release Wardlow. I want them to release Malachi Black and Miro and loads of other people that I just think take up space on the roster. Their roster's already bloated as it is, and they've signed some interesting new people, and they've got a lot of young stars that need the TV time and the exposure to get over to a higher level. I think that the ceiling of a lot of people on that roster on the younger side is bigger than Wardlow's. I'd say Wardlow definitely has potential, but I think that he either needs to, as I say, unlock that second gear while he's in AEW, or he needs to go somewhere else, find that second gear, and then come back to whether that's going to WWE, whether that's going somewhere else, and then joining one of the big promotions once he's found that edge or that different side to him. But yeah, I don't feel, from what I've seen, at least in the last like 18 months or so, I don't think he's going to find that niche in AEW.
Yeah, I'm kind of at the point. Look, you guys know that Adam Cole is one of my favorite wrestlers. I was obsessed with the Undisputed Era. I'm willing to just kind of accept at this point that maybe I'll just never get that again. You know what I mean? Like, I'm willing to just be like, yeah, I really enjoyed the NXT run. Unfortunately, the AEW run was never what I wanted. But I'll be honest, I'm kind of ready to accept the fact that while I will always enjoy Young Bucks matches, yeah, the Young Bucks full time hasn't been what I wanted either. You know what I mean? Like, while there's bits of AEW I love, there's also some bits that are just like, yeah, okay, this wasn't what I wanted, and that's okay, because everybody else seems to love it. Except for the Undisputed Kingdom, which nobody seems to like.
Kyle O'Reilly's going to fight Brian Keith on Collision, have his first match in a long time. Some other stuff that happened on this episode of Big Business of Dynamite. Lion Hook beat Gates of Agony. They're going to have a match next week. Darby Allin got attacked after he lost to Jay White, and then they beat him up afterward. Acclaimed come out, try to make the save, and then we get the split of the Bang Bang Scissor Gang.
See, this is another remnant of the end of that MJF thing. Is the idea of Bang Bang Scissor Gang was formed with the idea of, we're united against the Undisputed Kingdom, and then proceeded never to wrestle the Undisputed Kingdom.
Yeah,
and then broke up.
Yeah, that was pretty.
Because they realized it. Basically, every single remnant of that whole MJF, Roddy Strong, all those, and Adam Cole rivalry is just all a load of shit that AEW wants to see the back of now, and then moving forward with something else.
I don't blame them.
No, I don't blame them either. Also,
but at the same time, I'm like, shit. Like, you're the one that put this out there. You know what I mean? Like, it's
I know. I think they've always. I think they. Maybe to Tony Khan's detriment, has tried to give them a chance to see if they can get over, or try and give them opportunities and see how it would work out. And then it didn't catch on, both through a mixture of the poor creative and also just the performances or the crowd reaction just not being there. And so it means that, they decided, okay, we realised that Bullet Club Gold should just be a big, great heel act now, instead of, some sort of weird 12-man tag team championship thing they've got going on. Let's have that match now in like a couple of weeks' time, or Brawl It's Dynasty if you want to. Let's unify those 6 trios titles, and then we can move on.
Well, talk about unifying titles. If they do unify those titles, I wonder if they're actually going to unify them, or if they're going to unify them in the way that the Continental Crown has unified this all, because they announced the Continental Classic, just a tournament, and then it's for a championship. And then Eddie Kingston gets in there, and he's like, all right, I'm holding 2 belts. I'm going to put them on the line, and we're going to merge these all, and it's going to be a Triple Crown thing. And then they're all going to be together. It's all defended as the Continental Crown Championship. This week has basically been them going, yeah, never mind. It's been 3 months, and we already don't want that to be the case anymore, because next week, Eddie Kingston's going to defend just the Continental Championship against Kazuchika Okada, which Elite beat Kingston, Pac, and Penta, which we all saw coming from a mile away. And then Mark Briscoe is going to fight for just the ROH World Title at Supercard of Honor, which, when we were talking before we started recording here, I think all 3 of us are probably in the same agreement. Kingston's just going to drop all these belts. And I forget what you had said, Callum, about like he's got a defense against for the Strong title. Who is it?
I don't know if it's like an official defense yet, but I think that at Windy City Riot show that's coming up in April, he's going to have a match with Gabe Kidd for the New Japan Strong title, and he's going to lose the title to Gabe Kidd.
And we've talked before in the past about how Kingston's whole gimmick is being this like underdog, relatable guy who is like a loser but can get a big win every once in a while and all, and him holding these championships kind of offsets that a little bit. And Mark Briscoe winning the ROH title, it's not the direction I would have necessarily thought that they should have gone, when we've had things in the past where it's like he could have beaten Joe for the TV title and then they just relinquished that belt and all. They could have done Briscoe beating Claudio before. The Kingston thing makes sense though, so it's not like that's like a bad idea. Okada being the Continental Champion just very much seems like we got to put a belt on Okada, and like that makes sense too. Okada being a champion, it's not a bad thing. So if this is basically just this is their 3rd mid-card belt, it's on par with the TNT and the International title. And it serves no other purpose going forward. There's no Triple Crown thing or something. I don't know how that's going to impact a future Continental Classic. If they just make that at the end of the year, we're going to end up having this belt defended in that fashion all the time, or if they do some other Triple Crown thing or whatever. But it's pretty fast that we're already splitting these up, most likely. Kind of wish that they didn't do the Triple Crown thing to begin with.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. It's like a case of the Triple Crown was a cool concept, and essentially like it's an Eddie Kingston like fanboy moment about the fact of how his love of All Japan Pro Wrestling and the Triple Crown that was there. So he decided at the Continental Classic things like, okay, I want to create a Triple Crown. I've got 2 titles. There's another title that's been created. I'll throw my 2 titles in there, and we got a Triple Crown. So they've taken that approach. Clearly, situations have changed in the meantime with Okada coming in and different circumstances with even New Japan and what they want to do with Ring of Honor going forward as well. So yeah, it's only been a few months. I would hope that it would have lasted longer than this, but they've decided we can't really sustainably have a Triple Crown, all 3 of these titles tied up to one guy and always being defended across all shows, because you're not going to make Okada the Ring of Honor World Champion, and you certainly can't make him the New Japan Strong World Champion after what's gone down recently. So I would say that they want to give Okada a title, which is fair enough. Okada's been doing great, coming in as like this new heel character, and they want to hit the ground running with him immediately. So he's going to beat Kingston for the title next week in Toronto, and then he's going to defend it against Pac at Dynasty. And then Kingston's going to drop the title to Mark Briscoe. He's going to drop his other title to Gabe Kidd. He's going to go into like a vicious downward spiral, which he has to then recover from, and you get the old like underdog Eddie Kingston character back, rather than this all-conquering hero thing that he's been doing for the last few months. So I think that overall, the whole flow of the story is going to be effective. It's just, as they should have explained better how the Triple Crown works.
They tried, and if you're like me and you're a hawk for these stupid things, you go, okay, they said that's for the Continental Championship, not the Continental Crown. Okay, he's just defending that belt because it's the only one Okada's been thing over his head. I think it's fine. I don't think this hurts the idea of a future Triple Crown. It sucks for Kingston because he's about to lose everything, but I think he works better as the underdog, and Okada needs a belt because he's Okada. So I'm totally on board, and I'm on board with Briscoe winning the Ring of Honor World Title. I was on board with that a year ago. I think this is good moves all around. The only negative I would say is just kind of like we've been talking about. It feels like things move so fast that sometimes if you miss a week of AEW TV, you're like, oh shit, I feel a bit out of the loop. But I think good moves so far.
I could definitely see a situation, again, maybe this is just speculation, it's definitely just speculation at this point, but I could see a situation where they, within the next year or so, they unify the Continental and International Championships.
Yeah. Which then go back to when they first announced this, and you'll hear my opinions of when I was like, doesn't this just sound like it's the International Championship? And doesn't it sound like they're probably going to reach a point very quickly when they realize they can't keep the Triple Crown up and they should just not? And it's like, I told you so. It's just kind of like, I didn't have any faith that this was going to be that concept working out from the very start. And the Continental and the International, if they merge on, maybe it'll be the Intercontinental.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I had to go in that direction.
I can definitely see a thing like if you want to make the next year's Continental Classic and have a different flavour to that one as well, you could enter the idea of, okay, both the Continental Champion at the time and the International Champion at the time both enter into the Continental Classic. They'll be the figureheads of their separate groups, and then kind of the winner of the international group is goes into that match as the International Champion. The winner of the Continental group goes into that match as the Continental Champion, then does the unification part of it at whatever big show they decide to do the finals of that tournament.
What if they don't get a new deal with Warner? They move from TNT and TBS, and then you have to make it a Triple Crown, International, Continental, and TNT, and you get rid of the TNT title as well. Yeah, we're going to be in a weird spot in the future for sure with this. Like, they're going to have to figure out some other alternative because it's not working the same as it did this previous one, definitely. And I do think that they probably will end up combining those belts at some point and just kind of having their, if they go with Continental, if they go with International, I don't know. You would think at this point, even though the All Atlantic switched to the International and then they created the Continental one is sort of the newer one. So they might end up sticking with that name or going with a completely different name too. I mean,
I don't think they're merging these belts. First of all, I just don't. I think what is 4 singles titles is fine. So I think this Okada will get the chance to decide what this belt actually is. Maybe this will officially be their secondary championship. Where the TNT title can be more of like an open challenge thing. The international thing will be like the workhorse belt. Okada will decide what this is.
Yeah. The Continental one does have, like, in some ways at least, separate rules with the idea of like anyone gets fired if they interfere. You can't have people around ringside supporting you. So that's kind of, so there's at least like a different flavour to Continental matches and Continental rules being attached to them.
So the only other thing that happened on Big Business is at least that I have down and checking out like my notes and stuff. Actually, looking at Rob's thing on Fightful is Ospreay cut a bruv promo and some other little things like that didn't really change the game, but it's just other elements. The way that we kind of skipped over some of the other things on Raw and NXT and stuff.
The bruv promo was pretty good.
You said bro.
Pretty good. That promo was amazing.
It's. Let me put it to you like this: he can't be a heel.
No, he's a pure babyface, and he has to be a pure babyface. I literally think that, like, just off this promo and I think that another promo that he cut, the promo that he cut prior to Revolution, I think that it's just given me the indication that, okay, this is your top star. There's no ifs and or buts about it. This is going to be your top babyface star moving forward. I think that he parallels Cody in WWE. Like,
it would be weird if Ospreay's not in that spot. Yeah.
Yeah. I get really big vibes off the two of them that they're both kind of cut from the same cloth almost. Like, they're both great wrestlers, both awesome promos. I think that these are the two people that I think that it's almost like in like a weird way. Again, it's a very different time frame, but Cody is Hulk Hogan to Ospreay's Ric Flair.
I can see that though.
I think that'll be the iteration because Cody is probably a stronger overall like promo and like character, whereas Ospreay is the superior in-ring worker out to them, but still a great promo as well. But they kind of like, they have that, Cody's perfect for the WWE style and Ospreay's perfect for the AEW style. I don't think we'll ever see, unless Cody ever comes back, I don't think we'll ever see an iteration of those two actually wrestling each other.
Maybe a couple years from now, we're going to see a big Royal Rumble that'll set up those two against each other for WrestleMania, and then they won't do it. Just like the way that they didn't in WWE.
Well, that would involve Ospreay going to WWE, which I doubt is ever going to happen.
At this point, it probably isn't. Yeah.
I listened to that Talk Is Jericho episode that they did this week. That at least was released this week, talking about like him joining AEW and the whole story behind that, and just the idea of WWE never offered anything about the idea of him staying in the UK, which is what he wanted to do, and offered way less money than AEW did, and kind of that's the kind of like the thing that's been going out in the report and recent Observer. The idea of being that WWE's kind of utilising the whole draw of WWE, this like the bigger name and the allure of things like WrestleMania to appeal to people, whereas Tony Khan's saying, hey, do you want to earn a lot of money?
Do you want to earn a lot of money, do more creative freedom, not work as often, and be able to live wherever you want? It's like, no wonder you wouldn't. If you're making $10 fucking million or whatever, and WWE's like, you're not worth it, and you need to do more work.
WrestleMania, but you could be the main event of WrestleMania one day. Isn't that? I think it's always like that whole argument that a lot of people have, and it's like a stupid thing. Is like people think that AEW is the quote unquote mark promotion. Whereas based on if these reports about when negotiations are true, WWE is where the marks go.
Well, the reality is
because you're a mark for WWE. Because the only reason you go for that is if AEW and WWE competing on like over a wrestler, and AEW is able to offer, or is willing to offer more money, but WWE's offering the idea of WrestleMania. If you go to the WWE, that makes you a mark.
Well, it's kind of similar to what we used to have in the past, where it was like WCW is offering all this money and this creative freedom and this, you know, lighter schedule and whatever. And then WWE is like, call us when you want to go up to the big time. Well, and it's like that perception does work with some people. And then with other people, they're like, fuck you, it's a job. And I want, you know, I'll work for the number 2 company and make way more money and make less stress on myself and do all that for sure. You know, like I don't blame these people at all.
Though, like WWE, kind of like what I was saying earlier, they need to change their philosophy because they're so used to being like, well, you want to come work for us, right? Because you're ready to settle down, and they're like, no, there's another place I can go to and probably make more money if the guy thinks I'm worth it. Like, yeah, sure. A lot of people do want to do Mania, and I'm sure Will Ospreay thought about doing Mania, but they can't. That's not the selling point anymore. Hey, AJ Styles, we're ready for you now. Come beyond WrestleMania.
Yeah. I mean, also, it's in its formative stages right now, but AEW does have the allure of Wembley Stadium as well now.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's like, it's not at the same level of WrestleMania, and it probably in a way never will be, but it's a case like you want to wrestle in like one of the biggest stadiums in the world, a stadium that has like a worldwide reputation and has been a really big deal, then yeah, you can go. Only AEW have that relationship with Wembley Stadium. So yeah, I think that I think the WWE, if they want to be more competitive and are realizing that if they want someone more desperately that they think is going to be a big deal for the company, then they have to be more aggressive potentially in their negotiation approach. You can't just rely on the lure of WrestleMania and WWE. As I say, it will work for some people, but like you have to be willing to then say, okay, this is a job though, so you should be paid for it a lot more. But
they need to wake up, and they need to sometimes pony up more cash, and sometimes
realize that
bend a little bit on
competitor.
Yeah, like it's the people that they really need to try to get to, you know, kind of like the Okadas and the Ospreys and all them. Like, you're not going to be able to get them at some super cheap rate and just act like you did 10 years ago when it was like, put them in NXT because there's nothing better to do. They're not going to stick around in TNA. You can get a couple people here and there with that. You know, you got your Lexus Kings and stuff, but you know, if it ends up coming around to that MJF thing, if he didn't sign already, MJF isn't going to sign some piece of shit deal to work his ass off considerably more and just be in the WWE kind of thing, unless his experience, of course, is so bad in AEW that would be like, yeah, he's leaving anyway, like the CM Punk thing, which you can't just hope that your competition is sending people away and they have to come crawling to you. It's not going to happen with most people. So they need to stop like having this kind of perspective if they really want to get some of these guys and girls.
Yeah. And I would say this, like, just to round that part off, it's a case of WWE's super hot right now in terms of like popularity and perception and all of that stuff, whereas AEW kind of isn't. It's not always going to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
In a few years' time, WWE might find themselves in a situation where they're in a bit of a doldrum situation, in the same way that AEW was for a lot of 2023 and like sliding into 2024, hopefully upticking soon. But it's a case of eventually when this whole bloodline stuff ends, or Cody, like maybe crowds start to get, I would say, sick of Cody, but he starts to just dwindle in popularity a bit. You need to know who your next big stars and your next big up and comers going to be to continue the momentum. So maybe at the moment you could afford to lose out on an Okada or a Ospreay or a Mercedes, but eventually you're going to have to start getting super competitive with these people if you want to keep your momentum going.
And of course, some of those people just never gonna really fit too much. Like, I think it was a pipe dream for anybody to really think that Okada was going to go to WWE. Because it's not his style and stuff, you know?
I mean, I can give you 14 million reasons why he went to AEW instead.
And
imagine?
like, realistically, was he going to go there and be treated like an absolute top star and win the WWE Championship within a year and all that? No, he probably wasn't. They probably would have been looking at him the way that they've looked at a lot of people in the past, which is like, wow, good wrestler. We'd love to have you on the team. Now, can we reshape you in a different way? And you'd be a great Intercontinental Champion, kind of a thing. It's like, sometimes it is better to be on. Some people are way better off in TNA, and they can be a big fish in a small pond. And some people are like a small fish in a small pond, and then they go over to WWE, and it ends up being like, that's actually where you need to go, and then it all works out.
But where does Bobby Fish go?
I think he's probably flopping around outside gasping for air at this moment, right? Because he's not really doing anything, is he?
That's one of those things where it's like they brought in Red Dragon and it seemed like things were going okay. He did that match against Punk, and then suddenly he was gone, and now he shaved his head. He legitimately looks way older because he shaved his head, and it just seems like he'll probably never be back on TV again. I hope I'm wrong, but like,
I didn't know you could look any older. but I would say like one other thing that, if we kind of like round up that thing with AEW, one other thing that I think is at least of interest to mention is that Stardom president was backstage at the show as well. So the new Stardom president, Tara Okada, was backstage. So, and then also on the show, they had, well, not on that show, but afterwards, they did a recording from Ring of Honor, and one of Stardom's stars, Mina Shirakawa, was wrestling in one of the big featured matches against Anna Jay for Ring of Honor. So it's clear now there is at least the embers of a working relationship between Stardom and AEW, which hadn't existed prior to that with the whole Rossi Ogawa saga. So yeah, we're probably going to see some Stardom. Yeah, going to see some at Forbidden Door. I think it's already said that there's going to be New Japan, Stardom, and CMLL.
Yeah,
talent at Forbidden Door. It's going to be more of like a super show in that regard. And yeah, we'll probably get to see more Stardom wrestlers appearing in, like, doing shows in Ring of Honor, maybe appearing every now and again on AEW shows when they're available, like maybe popping up on Collision and Rampage in random matches in the same way that like Mystico's been appearing in random matches. So yeah, again, just more of the global reach. I think it's also a big part of like Sasha Mercedes being in, about the about her relationship with Stardom as well, probably being part of this as well. So I could imagine that we'll see some AEW talent going over to do Stardom shows as well.
Alrighty, everybody. Well, that is all that I got down on the hot tags.
Yeah, that was a pretty
2.5 hour episode. So leave us your thoughts in the comment section below about all these different things we talked about. Remember, going back to the Logan Paul story with the Prime drink, the first hot tag, all that. Probably would have been better if you would have been leaving comments throughout. But look through the list and you can see. We, of course, will talk about anything else that happens in the meantime for rounding out the next set of hot tags. If like something crazy happens on SmackDown tonight or whatever, or some big news breaks over the weekend. I'm not anticipating that that's necessarily going to be the case, but you never know. Everything changes in pro wrestling on a dime. So we do have another round of the hot tags coming up next week as per usual. And we also have that Mount Rushmore of the Samoan Anoa'i dynasty to go back and check on if you hadn't already checked out the main event this week. Main event next week is most likely going to be a top rope list of best WrestleMania moments, or our favorite WrestleMania moments, whatever we want to classify that. Most likely going to do that Hall of Lame dark cast as well. And before you know it, it's going to be WrestleMania in 3 weeks. So we got lots of that stuff to get into, but if you want us to do anything else in the meantime, Pig Poison tier is out there on the Patreon and the YouTube channel membership. You can always sponsor something directly that way. Also, leave your thoughts in the comments below if you have any other suggestions of different things. And keep in mind that you should be following Smark Out Moment all over the place, Facebook and Twitter, Discord, all that. But you should also be going on the link tree to check out things like fanboysanonymous.com and everything that's happening there. Like, follow, share, favorite, subscribe, that account, and all the other stuff there. Follow me at Tony Mango. Anything you find at amangotree.com, just click on the like button or the follow button or whatever like that. It's all greatly appreciated. And also, if you're following my stuff, you should follow what these guys are up to.
Yep, follow me everywhere, Dude Release. Check out my work on Fightful. By the time this goes out, if you catch it in time, I'll be on the SmackDown post show tonight. And yeah, just you never know what I'm doing over there. So just check all that good stuff out and check out what Callum's got going on.
You can follow me on Twitter at Weekmeister14. Check out the Power Rankings on Saturday over on smarkmo.com, where I list my rankings for the WWE Superstars based on the previous week's performances. And then you can also follow along with the Fantasy League over at wwefantasyleague.com and through Smark Out Moment, where you can see how all of our teams are performing, who keeps picking up points, who is potentially losing points. And then, because we're very close to WrestleMania, where our finalists, there's FIFA, me and Tony are the finalists at this point.
It's not, it's
where the winner will eventually be crowned following the double point bonanza at WrestleMania.
Remember when I thought
double point bonanza?
Yeah,
that's
what I'm phrasing it now. Yeah.
The witches, Isla Dawn and Alba Fire would be a great pick because they'll be NXT Women's Tag Team Champions for a while.
Some of those picks just don't work out. I mean, some of the protected picks that we got, we were like thinking, I thought Grayson Waller was going to definitely win the United States title at some point. And that didn't work out as well. And, but we'll see how that all plays out with the bonanza coming up. And, anything else, of course. In the meantime, check out smartgutmo.com. Anything might pop up there. You never really know if there's going to be a random article or something. So as long as you're within this ecosphere, you're on the Mega Maniacs on Facebook or, the Discord or anything like that, you'll find out more information where anything else pops up. In the meantime, that's going to do us in for this episode, though. Thank you, of course, for listening, everybody. And we'll talk to you soon. This has been another Smart Guy Moment, and we're being counted out.